The kingdom of Virex doesn't whisper its laws, it bleeds them into the bones of its people. At its heart, Alpha King Riker Vance rules with absolute dominance. No one dares defy him. No one survives the attempt. Until she appears, Kaya Thorne, a prisoner in rags and chains, but eyes burning with rebellion. "You can command a kingdom," she says, voice ice cold. "But you don't command me." The war room freezes. Riker doesn't kill her, doesn't shout, doesn't punish. He just watches, because for the first time in his life, something refuses to bow. And he doesn't know whether to destroy it or understand it. Stay until the end to see how Kaya survives. Hit like if you're watching from your city and comment your city name below. The throne room of Virex smelled like old blood and wet stone. Not metaphorically, literally. The walls still carried rust-colored stains from executions performed 3 days prior, traitors who'd questioned the grain tax. Riker hadn't bothered having them scrubbed away. Why would he? Fear worked better when it had a smell. He sat on the obsidian throne, one leg draped over the armrest, fingers drumming against the skull embedded in the stone. Human skull. Old King. The one before him. The one stupid enough to show mercy. Riker learned early, mercy was just another word for weakness wearing a crown. "Bring her in." His voice cut through the chamber. 50 council members straightened in their seats. Generals, warlords, territory alphas. Every single one of them had killed to earn their place in this room. Every single one of them feared the man on the throne more than they feared death itself. The iron doors groaned open. 2 guards dragged her in. Kaya Thorne. She wasn't what Riker expected. Prisoners came in broken. Heads down, shoulders collapsed, eyes empty. They shuffled. They whimpered. They begged before anyone even asked them a question. This one walked. Chains on her wrists, chains on her ankles, dirt smeared across her face like war paint. Her clothes were torn, hanging off one shoulder, revealing a collarbone that jutted out sharp enough to cut. She was thin. Too thin. Starved, probably. But she didn't shuffle. She walked. And when the guard shoved her to her knees in front of the throne, she didn't stay down. She stood back up. Slowly, deliberately, like it was her choice. The room inhaled collectively. Riker stopped drumming his fingers. "Did you just—" "I heard you the first time," Kaya said. Her voice wasn't loud, wasn't aggressive. It was calm, flat. The kind of calm that made the hairs on the back of your neck stand up because it didn't belong to someone in chains. "I'm just not interested in kneeling." Silence. The kind of silence that preceded executions. General Cade Arrow, seated to Riker's right, leaned forward. His hand moved to the hilt of his blade. "You want me to remove her tongue, my king, or just her head?" Riker raised one finger. Cade froze. The Alpha King studied the woman in front of him, really studied her. She wasn't looking at the floor, wasn't looking at the guards. She was looking directly at him. Eye contact. Unblinking. Unflinching. No one looked at him like that. No one. "What's your name?" Riker asked. "You already know it." "I want to hear you say it." "Why? So you can pretend you care before you kill me?" A few council members gasped. One actually stood up, hand on his sword. Riker didn't move, didn't blink, just kept staring at this impossible woman who stood in chains and spoke like she held all the cards. "Sit down, Lord Vex," Riker said quietly. The standing council member sat so fast his chair scraped against stone. "I asked you a question, prisoner." "Kaya Thorne." "Where are you from, Kaya Thorne? Does it matter?" "Answer the question." "The outer reaches." Riker's fingers resumed their drumming. The outer reaches. Lawless territories beyond Virex's borders, places where packs roamed wild, where alphas fought for scraps of land, where survival meant being meaner and faster than the thing trying to kill you. "You crossed into my territory 2 weeks ago," Riker said. "You were found in the northern pass with a dead alpha at your feet and 3 of his pack members unconscious. You killed an alpha, a territorial alpha, without a pack, without weapons. Explain." Kaya tilted her head slightly. "He tried to claim me. I declined. You declined." "That's what I said." "And then you killed him." He didn't take the decline well. Someone in the council laughed. A short, sharp bark, that was immediately swallowed when Riker's gaze swept the room. The laughter died. The room got colder. "Do you know what happens to rogues who cross into Virex?" Riker asked. "I'm guessing you're about to tell me. They submit or they die. Third option?" "There is no third option." Kaya smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile you saw on someone who'd already decided they were dead and stopped giving a damn about consequences. "Then I guess we have a problem," she said. Riker stood up. The entire room tensed. He descended the 3 steps from the throne slowly. His boots echoed against stone. He was tall, 6'5", broad-shouldered, built like a man who'd spent his entire life breaking things with his bare hands. His presence filled the room. Not just physically, there was something else, something primal. The Alpha aura. It rolled off him in waves, an invisible pressure that made lesser wolves drop to their knees without thinking. It was biological, hierarchical. An Omega felt it and submitted. A Beta felt it and lowered their eyes. Even other Alphas felt it and measured their next move carefully. Riker had the strongest aura in 6 kingdoms. He stopped 3 feet from Kaya, released it fully. The room buckled, guards stumbled, council members gripped their armrests, fighting the urge to prostrate themselves. General Cade, an Alpha himself, gritted his teeth and kept his head up through sheer force of will. Kaya didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't even blink. She just stood there, chains rattling slightly, head tilted back to meet his eyes, that same calm expression on her dirt-streaked face. "Kneel," Riker said. His voice was low, commanding, the kind of voice that bypassed conscious thought and went straight to the spine. "No. I'm not asking." "Neither am I." Riker's jaw clenched. He stepped closer. Close enough that she had to crane her neck back to maintain eye contact. Close enough that he could smell her, blood, dirt, sweat, and underneath it all something wild. Something that didn't smell like submission. "You should be terrified right now," he said quietly. "Probably. But you're not." "Terrified of what? Dying? I've been dying since I was 8 years old. You'll have to be more creative than that." Riker reached out. His hand moved to her throat. Not squeezing. Not yet. Just resting there. Thumb against her pulse point. He could feel her heartbeat. Steady, even. No spike of fear. No rabbit panic that usually came when he touched someone like this. "I could kill you right now," he said. "Snap your neck before you took another breath." "You could," Kaya agreed. Her voice didn't waver. "But you won't." "Why not?" "Because you're curious." Riker's eyes narrowed. "Curious. You've spent your whole life surrounded by people who kneel before you even open your mouth. Generals who kill on command. Subjects who piss themselves when you walk by. You're the most powerful Alpha in 6 kingdoms, and every single person in this room would cut off their own hand if you asked them to." She paused, met his eyes. "And you're bored out of your mind." The words landed like a knife between his ribs. Riker's hand tightened on her throat, just slightly, just enough to prove he could. Kaya didn't react. "I'm not bored," he said. "You're lying. You don't know me. I know men like you. There are no men like me. See?" Kaya's lips curved into that dangerous smile again. "Bored and arrogant. That's a bad combination, Your Majesty." Riker released her throat, stepped back, turned to face his council. 50 faces stared back at him, waiting for the order, waiting for him to end this disrespectful, impossible woman who'd just insulted their king to his face. "Lock her in the South Tower," Riker said. Silence. General Cade stood up slowly. "My king, with respect..." "Did I stutter, General?" "No, but..." "Then carry out the order." Cade's mouth opened, closed. His hand fell away from his sword. "The South Tower. For how long?" "Until I decide otherwise. And if she tries to escape, she won't." "How do you know?" Riker looked back at Kaya. She was watching him with those unsettling eyes, not grateful, not relieved, just watching, calculating. "Because she wants to see what happens next," Riker said quietly. Then louder, to the room. "Council dismissed. We're done here." The council members rose, exchanging confused glances. This wasn't how things worked. Prisoners who defied the king didn't get locked in towers. They got executed. Publicly. Messily. But no one argued. They filed out in silence, leaving only Riker, Kaya, and the two guards who'd brought her in. Riker walked back to his throne, sat down, draped his leg over the armrest exactly as before. "Take her," he said to the guards. They grabbed Kaya's arms. This time, she didn't resist. As they hauled her toward the doors, she looked back over her shoulder. "You should have killed me," she called out. Riker met her eyes across the empty throne room. "I know," he said. The doors slammed shut. The South Tower was less a tower and more a stone cylinder stabbed into the sky like a middle finger to the gods. 80 feet tall, no windows except at the very top. One way in, one way out. It had been built 2 centuries ago as a lookout post during the border wars and converted into a prison when the wars ended and there was nothing left to look out for. Kaya's cell was at the top, 73 steps. The guards counted them out loud as they dragged her up. Like it was funny. Like she was supposed to be impressed or intimidated by the number of stairs between her and freedom. She stopped counting after 40. Her cell was circular, 10 feet in diameter. Stone floor, stone walls, stone ceiling. One window, narrow, barred, too small for even a child to squeeze through. A cot in the corner with a blanket that looked like it had been used to clean up blood. A bucket in the opposite corner for waste. No chains on the walls. Interesting. The guard shoved her inside. One of them, tall, scarred, missing 2 fingers on his left hand, grabbed her chin and forced her to look at him. "You got lucky today, bitch," he said. His breath smelled like rotted meat. "King's feeling generous, but that won't last. You know what happens to pretty little things locked up in towers?" "They get rescued by princes?" Kaya asked flatly. The guard's face darkened. He raised his hand. The other guard, younger, nervous, grabbed his wrist. "Don't. King said no harm. King said lock her up. Didn't say nothing about not having a little fun first. He'll smell it on her if you touch her. You know he will." The scarred guard spat on the floor, released Kaya's face with a shove that sent her stumbling back against the wall. "You better hope he gets bored of you fast," he growled, "because once he does, you're mine." They left. The door slammed. A lock clicked. Then another. Then a third. Kaya stood in the center of the cell, listening to their footsteps descend the 73 stairs, listening to the lower door boom shut, listening to the silence that followed. Then she walked to the window. It faced east. She could see the edge of the capital city, Steelhaven, spreading out below like a tumor. Stone buildings packed tight, smoke rising from forges. In the distance, the wall, 50 feet high, manned by guards every 30 yards. Beyond the wall, forest. Beyond the forest, mountains. Beyond the mountains, the outer reaches. Home, if you could call it that. Kaya pressed her forehead against the cold bars and closed her eyes. Her heart was pounding now. Now that she was alone, now that the adrenaline was fading and reality was setting in, she'd just defied an Alpha King, to his face, in front of his entire council. And somehow, impossibly, she was still breathing. That wasn't luck, that was something worse. Curiosity. He was curious about her, which meant he'd keep her alive until his curiosity was satisfied. And then, Kaya opened her eyes, looked down at her wrists. The chains were still on, heavy iron cuffs connected by 2 feet of thick links. Her ankles were the same. She could walk, could move, but couldn't run, couldn't fight effectively. She sat down on the cot, tested the chains, pulled, twisted. The iron didn't budge. Of course not. If breaking chains was easy, every prisoner in history would have done it. She lay back on the cot, springs digging into her spine, blanket scratching her skin, and stared at the curved stone ceiling. Tried to figure out her next move. Tried not to think about the way Riker's hand had felt on her throat. Tried not to think about the way he'd looked at her like she was a puzzle he intended to solve. Tried not to think about what happened to puzzles once they were solved. They got thrown away. Riker didn't go to his chambers. He went to the training yard. The guards on duty saw him coming and scattered like rats. Smart. When the king showed up to the yard unannounced, it meant he needed to break something, and no one wanted to be the thing that got broken. He stripped off his shirt, walked to the center of the sand pit. There were training dummies arranged in a circle, thick wood posts wrapped in leather, reinforced with iron cores, built to withstand punishment. Riker punched the first one. His fist went through the leather, cracked the wood underneath. He pulled back, punched again. Harder. The dummy rocked on its base. He moved to the next one. Punch, crack, the next. Punch, crack. He worked his way around the circle, fists moving faster, hitting harder, breathing getting ragged. Sweat dripped down his back. His knuckles split. Blood smeared the leather. He didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Because if he stopped, he'd have to think. And if he thought, he'd have to admit something he didn't want to admit. She was right. That prisoner, that impossible, infuriating, chain-wearing woman who stood in his throne room and refused to kneel, she was right. He was bored. Riker had conquered 3 kingdoms by the time he was 25. Crushed rebellions, executed traitors, built an empire that stretched from the northern ice to the southern coasts. He was feared, respected, obeyed without question, and every single day felt exactly the same. Wake up, council meetings. Listen to reports of border skirmishes that didn't matter. Sign execution orders for criminals who weren't worth remembering. Sit on a throne made of a dead king's skull and pretend he gave a damn about grain taxes and trade disputes. He was 32 years old, and he felt ancient. Until today. Until her. Riker drove his fist into the final dummy so hard the entire post cracked down the middle and toppled over. He stood there, chest heaving, blood dripping from his knuckles, staring at the wreckage. Feel better? Riker turned. General Cade Arrow stood at the edge of the pit, arms crossed, expression unreadable. What do you want, Cade? To ask what the hell you're doing. Training. Bullshit. Cade walked closer. He was one of the few people in Virex who could speak to Riker like this. Blunt, direct, without fear of execution. They'd fought together in the border wars, saved each other's lives more times than either could count. You don't keep prisoners alive. You especially don't keep prisoners alive who disrespect you in front of the entire council. She's not a threat. She's more than a threat. She's a symbol. Of what? Of weakness. Cade's voice was quiet but sharp. You let her stand there and talk back to you. You let her refuse your command. Every alpha in that room saw it. Every beta. Every omega. Word's already spreading through the city. Let it spread. Riker, I said let it spread. Riker wiped blood from his knuckles onto his pants. If my authority is so fragile that one prisoner can break it, then maybe I don't deserve this throne. Cade stared at him. You don't actually believe that. Don't I? What's going on with you? What? Nothing's going on. Then why is she still breathing? Good question. Riker had asked himself the same thing 17 times since he'd left the throne room. He should have killed her. Should have wrapped his hand around her throat and squeezed until that infuriating calm expression disappeared and panic took its place. Should have made an example of her, but he didn't, because when he'd looked into her eyes, really looked, he hadn't seen fear. He'd seen recognition, like she knew exactly who he was. Not King Riker Vance, ruler of Virex, alpha of alphas. Just Riker. The man underneath the crown. The man who was so goddamn tired of being alone, he'd forgotten what it felt like to be anything else. I'm keeping her alive because I want to, Riker said finally. Cade's jaw tightened. That's not good enough. It's the only answer you're getting. The Council won't accept this. The Council doesn't have a choice. Riker, listen to me. This conversation is over, General. Riker's voice dropped into command tone. The tone that meant the next person who spoke would regret it. Cade's mouth snapped shut. He gave a stiff nod, turned, walked away. Riker watched him go. Then he looked up at the sky, pale gray, threatening rain, and tried to figure out when everything in his life had become a performance. When had he stopped feeling and started pretending? When had power stopped being a tool and started being a cage? He didn't have answers, but for the first time in years, he wanted them. And somehow, impossibly, he thought the woman locked in the South Tower might be the one who could give them to him. Ukwags. 3 days passed. Kaya spent them exploring the limits of her prison. The cell was exactly 10 feet in diameter. She measured it by lying on the floor and using her body as a ruler. The ceiling was 12 feet high. The bars on the window were spaced 4 inches apart. The door was oak reinforced with iron bands. The lock was triple bolted. There was no escape. Not through the window, not through the door. Not unless she could convince the guards to let her out, which seemed unlikely, given that one of them wanted to rape her and the other was too scared of Riker to breathe wrong. So she waited. Ate the food they brought, stale bread, watery soup, occasionally a chunk of meat that might have been rat. Drank the water that tasted like rust. Slept on the cot that destroyed her back. Used the bucket that made the cell smell like a latrine. And thought. Thought about Riker. Thought about the way he'd looked at her. Not like a prisoner, not like a threat, but like a question he couldn't answer. Thought about his hand on her throat and the way his pulse had jumped when she'd told him he was bored. She'd meant it. She'd seen it in his eyes, the emptiness, the exhaustion, the same look she saw in her own reflection whenever she found a still pond to stare into. The look of someone who'd survived so long they'd forgotten how to live. Kaya understood that look. She'd been wearing it since she was 8 years old, and her pack was slaughtered by a rogue alpha who wanted their territory. She'd survived by hiding in a grain barrel for 3 days while the bodies rotted around her. Survived by learning to be invisible, to be silent, to be nothing. And then she'd learned to be dangerous. Because dangerous things didn't get hunted, they did the hunting. On the third night, the door opened. Not the guards. Riker. He stood in the doorway, backlit by torchlight from the stairs, face shadowed. He was alone. No guards. No weapons visible. Just him in a black tunic and leather pants, hands empty, expression unreadable. Kaya was sitting on the cot. She didn't stand, didn't bow, just looked at him. "You brought dinner yourself?" she asked. "How thoughtful." Riker stepped inside. The door closed behind him. Not all the way. Just enough that they were alone but not locked in together. He looked around the cell, at the bucket, at the cot, at the window. "This is shit," he said. "It's a prison. What did you expect? Silk sheets?" "I expected..." He trailed off, shook his head. "I don't know what I expected." "Why are you here?" "To talk. We talked 3 days ago. Didn't go well for me." "You're still alive." "Temporarily." Riker's lips twitched, almost a smile. Not quite. "You're very confident for someone in chains. You're very curious for someone who could have killed me and moved on with his life." There it is again. "What?" "That thing you do, where you say exactly what you're thinking, like consequences don't exist." "Consequences always exist," Kaya said. "I just stopped caring about them a long time ago." Riker walked closer, sat down on the floor across from her, back against the wall, legs stretched out, arms resting on his knees. Casual. Like they were two people having a conversation instead of king and prisoner. "Tell me about the outer reaches," he said. "Why?" "Because I want to know. You want to know about the lawless territories full of rogues and murderers? What's there to tell? It's exactly what it sounds like. No laws, no structure, no alphas holding power because they inherited a throne. Just survival. And you survived. Obviously." "How?" Kaya studied him, tried to figure out what he was really asking, what he wanted from this conversation. "I learned to fight," she said finally. "Learned to move quiet. Learned to kill before I got killed. Learned that mercy is just another word for stupid." Riker's eyes sharpened. "You think mercy is stupid, don't you?" "I think mercy is weakness." "Same thing." "Is it? In my experience?" "Yeah." Kaya leaned back against the cold stone wall. "Every person I ever showed mercy to either betrayed me or died because someone else didn't show them the same courtesy. Mercy doesn't keep you alive. Fear does." "And yet you don't fear me." "I didn't say that." "You said you weren't terrified." "Not being terrified and not being afraid are two different things." Riker tilted his head slightly. "Explain." "Terror is what you feel when you're about to die, and there's nothing you can do about it. Fear is what you feel when you might die, but you still have choices." Kaya met his eyes. "I'm afraid of you. I'd be an idiot not to be. But I'm not terrified, because I still have choices." "What choices?" "Whether to kneel or stand. Whether to speak or stay silent. Whether to live like a coward or die like I actually gave a damn about something." Silence. Riker studied her for a long moment. Then he said quietly, "You remind me of someone." "Who?" "Me, 10 years ago." Kaya laughed, short, sharp, bitter. "I'm nothing like you." "You think power makes us different?" "Power makes everyone different." "Does it?" Riker leaned forward slightly. "You killed an Alpha in the Northern Pass, alone, unarmed. That takes power. That takes desperation. What's the difference?" "Desperation fades when the threat is gone. Power doesn't." "And which one are you running on right now?" Kaya opened her mouth, closed it, because she didn't have an answer. Riker smiled. Actually smiled. It changed his entire face, made him look younger, less like a weapon and more like a person. "See?" he said. "We're not so different. You're an Alpha King who rules through fear and dominance. I'm a rogue prisoner in chains. We're about as different as two people can get. On the surface, maybe." Riker stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the city below. "But underneath? We're both survivors. We both know what it's like to be alone. We both know that power is the only thing that keeps you breathing." He turned back to face her. "The only difference is, I have a crown and you have chains." "That's not a small difference, isn't it? Take away the crown and I'm just a man who kills to stay alive. Take away the chains and you're just a woman who does the same. We're both prisoners, Kaya, just in different cages." The words hit harder than they should have, because he was right. Kaya had spent the last 15 years in a cage of her own making. Survival at all costs, trust no one, care about nothing, keep moving or die. She'd escaped territorial alphas and warlords and packs that wanted to break her, but she'd never escaped herself. And somehow, this king, this arrogant, dangerous, broken king, saw it. "Why are you really here?" Kaya asked quietly. Riker walked back to the door, put his hand on the handle, paused. "Because everyone in my life bows before I even speak, and I wanted to have one conversation with someone who wouldn't." He opened the door. "Good night, Kaya Thorne." He left. The door closed. The locks clicked. Kaya sat alone in the dark cell, chains heavy on her wrists, and tried to ignore the fact that for the first time since she was 8 years old, she'd felt something other than fear or anger during a conversation. She'd felt seen. The next morning, Kaya woke to shouting, not in her cell, below, in the city. She dragged herself to the window, body stiff from sleeping on a cot designed to torture spines, and looked down. The streets of Steelhaven were packed. Not unusual. The capital was always crowded, but this was different. This wasn't market day or festival traffic. This was chaos. People running, guards shouting, smoke rising from the eastern quarter. Kaya pressed her face against the bars, trying to see what was happening. Then she heard it, a howl, long, low, furious, the sound of an alpha calling for blood. Another howl answered, then another, then a dozen more. The window rattled, the entire tower shook. Kaya's blood went cold. She'd heard that sound before. In the outer reaches, when packs went to war. The door to her cell slammed open. Not Riker, not the guards. General Cade Arrow. He looked like he'd been running, sweat on his face, blade drawn, eyes wild. "Get up," he snapped. Kaya stood. "What's happening?" "Rebellion." "What?" "3 packs from the Western Territories. They crossed the wall an hour ago. They're tearing through the city. Riker's trying to hold the palace, but they're coming in too fast." Cade grabbed her arm. "You need to move, now." "Why? I'm a prisoner. Leave me here." "Because you're the reason they're attacking." Kaya's stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" "Word got out, about you, about what you did in the throne room. 3 packs took it as a sign, proof that Riker's losing control. They're calling for his head, and yours." Cade hauled her toward the door. "If they get to you first, they'll make an example of you. Publicly. Slowly. Then kill me yourself and save them the trouble." Cade stopped. Turned. Looked at her with something that might have been respect if it wasn't buried under so much rage. "I would," he said. "But the king gave me direct orders. Keep you alive, no matter what." "Why?" "How the hell should I know? He's losing his mind over you. Now move before I drag you." He didn't wait for an answer. He dragged her, down the 73 stairs, through the lower door, out into chaos. The palace grounds were a war zone, bodies everywhere. Guards fighting wolves, massive, snarling things the size of horses with fangs like daggers. Blood on the cobblestones, screaming, howling. The clash of steel on claw. Cade pulled Kaya through it, chains rattling, feet stumbling, toward the main palace entrance. A wolf lunged from the left. Cade's blade flashed. The wolf's head hit the ground before its body did. They kept running. Through the palace doors, down hallways lined with tapestries that were now torn and bloody, past servants huddled in corners, past guards forming defensive lines, and then a roar. Not a howl. A roar. Riker. Cade changed direction, hauled Kaya through a side corridor toward the throne room. The doors were open. Inside, carnage. 5 wolves, dead or dying, blood pooling across the stone floor. And in the center of it all, Riker, shirtless, covered in blood, breathing hard, claws extended, actual claws, black and curved, dripping red. His eyes were different, brighter, feral. Full alpha shift. He was magnificent and terrifying in equal measure. He saw Kaya, saw Cade. "Why is she here?" Riker's voice was rougher, deeper. The wolf bleeding through. "They're targeting her," Cade said. "I couldn't leave her in the tower. They'd have torn through it in minutes. Take her to my chambers. Lock the door. Don't let anyone in." "Riker, the palace is breached. We need to evacuate." "I said take her to my chambers." The command hit like a physical force. Cade stumbled. Kaya felt her knees buckle. Not from fear, from the sheer weight of Riker's dominance flooding the room. Even in chains, even having resisted him before. This was different. This was the full force of an Alpha King's will, and it was crushing. Cade grabbed her arm, started pulling her toward the side exit. And that's when the east wall exploded. Stone and dust and debris blasted inward. Through the smoke, 3 wolves emerged, bigger than the others. Territory alphas. They shifted mid-stride, bones cracking, fur receding, human forms taking shape. 3 men, naked, scarred, eyes burning gold. The one in front, broad-shouldered, tattoos covering his chest, smiled. "Riker Vance," he said. His voice was gravel and broken glass. "The king who keeps pets instead of killing enemies. How the mighty have fallen." Riker didn't move, didn't speak, just stared. The tattooed alpha's eyes shifted to Kaya. "That her? The bitch who wouldn't kneel?" Kaya's mouth went dry. Riker stepped forward, placing himself between her and the alphas. "You want her?" Riker said quietly. "You'll have to go through me." The tattooed alpha laughed. "That's the plan." He shifted. So did the other 2. 3 massive wolves launched themselves at Riker, and the Alpha King met them with a roar that shook the throne room to its foundations. The first wolf hit Riker like a battering ram. Fangs aimed for his throat, claws extended. 500 pounds of muscle and rage moving faster than anything that size should be able to move. Riker caught it midair. His claws sank into fur and flesh. He twisted, used the wolf's momentum against it, slammed it into the stone floor so hard the impact cracked the tiles. The wolf yelped. Riker's hand closed around its throat, squeezed. The second wolf came from the left. Riker didn't see it coming. Jaws clamped down on his shoulder, fangs punched through muscle. Blood sprayed. He roared, spun, drove his elbow into the wolf's skull. Once, twice, 3 times until he felt bone give way and the jaws released. The third wolf circled, smarter than the others, waiting for an opening. Riker straightened, blood running down his arm, shoulder screaming. The first wolf was dead, neck crushed. The second was stumbling, head caved in, whimpering. The third shifted, back to human form. The tattooed alpha. He stood naked in the center of the throne room, blood on his mouth, eyes still burning gold, grinning like this was the best day of his life. "You're slower than I expected," he said. Riker spat blood. "You talk too much." "Do I? Or are you just stalling because you know how this ends? Enlighten me." "You die. Your pet dies. And we take this kingdom piece by piece until there's nothing left but ashes and the memory of a king who got weak over a woman." Riker's claws extended further, black, curved, dripping. "Come try." The tattooed alpha laughed. "I don't have to. My pack's already inside the palace. Your guards are overwhelmed, your council's scattered. You're alone, Riker, just like you've always been. He's not alone. The voice came from behind, Cade, still holding Kaya's arm but blade drawn, eyes hard, standing at Riker's flank like he'd done 1,000 times before in 1,000 other battles. The tattooed Alpha's grin widened. The loyal general. How touching. You really think the two of you can hold the palace? We've held worse, Cade said, against rogues and border packs, not against 3 coordinated territories. Then it'll be a fair fight. The Alpha's eyes shifted to Kaya, lingered. Tell me something, girl. Was he worth it? Kaya said nothing. All this chaos, all these bodies, because you wouldn't kneel, because you had to prove something. He took a step forward. Was it worth watching people die for your pride? Don't talk to her, Riker said. His voice dropped into something subterranean, something that made the air pressure change. Why not? She's the reason we're here. Seems fair she should answer for it. She didn't start this. You did. We seized an opportunity. There's a difference. The Alpha tilted his head, studying Kaya like she was a puzzle. You know what I think? I think she's a coward hiding behind defiance. I think she kneels real pretty when no one's watching. Kaya's jaw clenched. The Alpha noticed, smiled. There it is, that flash of anger. You're not as calm as you pretend, are you? And you're not as smart as you think, Kaya said quietly. Excuse me? You broke into a fortified palace with 3 packs, and you're standing here talking instead of finishing the job. That's not strategy. That's arrogance, and arrogance gets you killed. The Alpha's smile disappeared. He shifted. No warning, no build-up. 1 second human, the next a massive wolf launching across the throne room directly at Kaya. Riker moved faster. He slammed into the wolf mid-flight. They hit the ground in a tangle of limbs and fangs, rolling, snarling, blood everywhere. Cade yanked Kaya backward. Move! Where? Anywhere but here. He dragged her toward the side exit, through the doors, into a corridor that was somehow quieter than the throne room, but no less terrifying because the silence meant the fighting had moved deeper into the palace. Kaya's chains rattled with every step. Her wrists were bleeding where the iron had rubbed her skin raw. Her lungs burned. Her mind was racing. 3 packs. Coordinated attack. They'd been planning this. And she was the excuse. This isn't about me, she said between breaths. Cade didn't slow down. What? The attack. It's not about me. I'm just the excuse they needed. Does it matter? Yes. It means they were going to hit the palace anyway. I just gave them cover to move early. Cade stopped, spun to face her. You think that makes it better? I think it makes it tactical. Tactical. Cade's grip on her arm tightened. 3 packs are tearing through Steelhaven. Hundreds of people are dying. The palace is breached. And you want to talk tactics? I want to understand why Riker's keeping me alive when killing me would solve half his problems. Cade stared at her. Something shifted behind his eyes. Something dangerous. You really don't know, do you? He said quietly. Know what? Why he's keeping you alive? No. It's because you're the first thing in 10 years that's made him feel human instead of like a weapon someone else is holding. The words hit like a slap. Kaya opened her mouth, closed it. Cade released her arm, stepped back. You think you're a prisoner. You think you're nothing. But you're wrong. You're the most dangerous thing in this palace. Not because of what you did, because of what you make him want. What does he want? To not be alone anymore. Cade's expression hardened. And that weakness is going to get everyone in this kingdom killed. He turned, started walking again. Kaya followed. Because what else could she do? They reached Riker's chambers 3 corridors later. The doors were massive, oak reinforced with steel bands, guards posted on either side, both wounded, both still standing. Cade nodded to them. No one gets in. I don't care if the palace is burning. You hold this door or you die trying. Yes, General. He pushed the doors open, shoved Kaya inside. The chambers were enormous, 50 feet across. Stone walls covered in weapon racks, swords, axes, spears, enough to outfit a small army. A bed in the corner that looked like it could sleep 5 people. A desk covered in maps and reports. Windows overlooking the city, curtains drawn. And in the center of the room, a circle of candles. No, not candles. Scent markers. Kaya's stomach dropped. She recognized the setup, had seen it in the outer reaches when alphas wanted to claim territory, or claim a person. "What is this?" she asked. Cade didn't answer. He walked to the weapon racks, started pulling down blades, checking edges. "Cade, what is this?" "Insurance," he said without turning around. "Against what?" "Against you running," Kaya laughed, short, bitter. "I'm in chains in a palace under siege. Where exactly would I run? You'd find a way. You're smart like that." Cade turned to face her, a short sword in each hand. "But if they get through that door, you're going to need to know how to use one of these." He tossed her a blade. Kaya caught it, barely. The weight was wrong, the balance was off. But it was sharp. "I don't know how to fight with a sword," she said. "Then you'll die with one in your hand instead of empty-handed. Pick your preference." "Why are you helping me?" "I'm not. I'm following orders." "Riker's orders." "Yes." "Why does he care if I live or die?" Cade set down the second blade, crossed his arms, looked at her with an expression that was part exhaustion, part resignation. "You want the truth?" he asked. "Yes." "I don't know, and that scares the hell out of me." Before Kaya could respond, the sound of howling echoed through the palace. Closer now, much closer. Cade's head snapped toward the door. "They're in the East Wing." "How long until they reach us?" 10 minutes, maybe less." "And Riker?" "Fighting. Alone. Because he sent me here to protect you instead of watching his flank." Cade's jaw clenched. "So if he dies, it's on both of us." Kaya's grip tightened on the sword. "Let me fight." "No. I'm not useless." "You're in chains. Then take them off." "No." "Why not?" "Because the second I do, you'll run, and Riker will kill me for it." "I won't run." "You expect me to believe that?" "I don't care what you believe, but if this palace falls and those wolves get to me, they'll make an example. Publicly. Slowly. You said it yourself." Kaya stepped closer, met his eyes. "I'd rather die fighting than die screaming." "Wouldn't you?" Cade stared at her. The howling got louder. He cursed, pulled a key from his belt, grabbed her wrist. The lock clicked. The chains fell. Both wrists, both ankles. Kaya's arms felt weightless. She flexed her fingers, rolled her shoulders. The freedom was dizzying. "If you run," Cade started. "I won't." "If you run, I'll hunt you myself." "I said I won't." The door exploded inward, not from a battering ram, from claws. A wolf burst through, smaller than the territory alphas, but fast, rabid, foaming at the mouth. It saw Kaya, lunged. She moved on instinct, dropped low, let the wolf sail over her, spun, drove the sword up into its exposed belly as it passed. The wolf hit the ground, convulsed, died. Kaya pulled the blade free. Blood dripped from the tip. Cade stared at her. "You said you didn't know how to fight with a sword." "I said I didn't know how to fight well. There's a difference." More howling. Right outside the door, Cade drew his own blade, positioned himself between Kaya and the entrance. "Stay behind me." "No." "That's an order. You're not my general." "Kaya." 3 more wolves poured through the shattered doorway. Cade met the first one. Blade flashing, wolf screaming, the second went for Kaya. She sidestepped. Barely. Felt claws rake her arm. Pain flared. She ignored it, swung the sword, felt it bite into flesh. The wolf yelped, turned, came at her again. This time she was ready. She feinted left, dodged right. Brought the sword down on the wolf's spine. The blade stuck. She couldn't pull it free. The third wolf saw the opening, charged. Kaya abandoned the sword, grabbed a spear from the weapon rack, braced it against the floor. The wolf impaled itself. The force drove Kaya backward. Her shoulders hit the wall. The wolf thrashed, claws slashing, jaws snapping inches from her face. She held the spear, gritted her teeth, pushed. The wolf's thrashing slowed, stopped. Kaya let go. Stumbled back. Her hands were shaking, blood on her arms, blood on her clothes. Not all of it hers. Cade dispatched the last wolf. Turned to check on her. "You good?" "Define good." "Alive." "Then yeah." He nodded. Started toward the door to check the corridor. Kaya bent down, pulled her sword from the dead wolf's spine. The blade came free with a wet sound that made her stomach turn. She'd killed before. In the outer reaches, killing was survival. Quick, necessary. You didn't think about it. But this was different. This was war. And she was standing in the middle of it, covered in blood, holding a sword she barely knew how to use, fighting for a king she didn't owe anything to. Except she did owe him something. He'd kept her alive when he should have killed her. He'd given her a cell instead of an execution. He'd looked at her like she was a person instead of a problem. And now he was fighting alone because he'd sent his best fighter to protect her. "We need to go," Kaya said. Cade turned. "What?" "To the throne room. Riker's alone. My orders are to keep you here." "Your orders are going to get him killed." "He can handle himself? Against 3 territory alphas, alone? For how long?" Cade's jaw worked. He didn't answer, because he didn't have one. "You know I'm right," Kaya pressed. "You know he needs backup, and you're standing here babysitting a prisoner instead of fighting beside him. If you die, he'll never forgive me. If he dies, you'll never forgive yourself." The words landed. Cade's expression cracked. Just for a second, just enough to show the conflict underneath. "You don't understand," he said quietly. "He's not just my king. He's my brother. We fought together, bled together. I've saved his life and he's saved mine more times than I can count. And now he's ordering me to abandon him for a woman he's known for 3 days. Do you have any idea what that feels like?" "No," Kaya said. "But I know what it feels like to watch someone die because you were too afraid to act. And I know you don't want that on your conscience." Cade stared at her. The palace shook. Something massive had hit the outer wall. "If we go," he said slowly, "you stay behind me. You don't engage unless I'm down. You don't play hero. Understood?" "Understood. And if I tell you to run, I won't. If I tell you to run, you run. No arguments, no heroics. You get out of the palace and you disappear into the city and you never look back." Kaya met his eyes. "I'm not leaving him. You barely know him." "I know enough. You know he's a king. You know he's powerful. You know he kept you alive. That's not enough to die for." "Maybe not, but it's enough to fight for." Cade studied her face, looking for something. Doubt, maybe. Fear. A reason to keep her locked in these chambers. He didn't find it. "You're insane," he muttered. "Probably. And you're going to get us both killed." "Maybe. But you're not going to back down." "No." Cade exhaled, long, slow, like he was releasing the last shred of good judgment he had left. "Fine," he said. "Let's go save the idiot king." They ran, down corridors slick with blood, past bodies, guards, wolves, servants who'd been caught in the crossfire. The palace was a slaughterhouse. Every room they passed revealed more carnage, but the fighting had moved, centralized. All the howling, all the screaming was coming from one direction. The throne room. They burst through the doors, and Kaya's breath stopped. The room was destroyed. The obsidian throne cracked down the middle, the walls gouged with claw marks deep enough to expose the stone underneath the plaster. Bodies everywhere. At least a dozen wolves, dead or dying. And in the center of it all, Riker, still standing, barely. His left arm hung useless, dislocated shoulder, maybe broken. Blood poured from a gash across his ribs. His right leg buckled with every step. But his eyes were still burning, still feral, still fighting. The tattooed alpha circled him, human form now, also wounded, limping, blood running from his mouth, but grinning. "You're tougher than I expected," the alpha said. "I'll give you that." Riker didn't respond, just watched, waiting for the next attack. "But you're done. Look at you. You can barely stand. Your palace is falling. Your guards are dead. And your little pet—" The alpha's gaze shifted, found Kaya standing in the doorway. His grin widened. "Well, there she is." Riker's head turned. His eyes locked on Kaya. Something shifted in his expression. Relief, anger, fear, all of it mixed together into something Kaya couldn't name. "I told you to stay in my chambers," he said. His voice was rough, strained. "And I didn't listen," Kaya said. "Seems to be my thing." The tattooed alpha laughed. "Oh, this is perfect. The king and his defiant whore reunited just in time to die together. Riker's claws extended. Call her that again. What? Whore? That's what she is, isn't it? Some outer reaches trash you picked up because you were bored. Riker moved. Even wounded, even half dead, he moved faster than the Alpha expected. Claws found throat, tore. The tattooed Alpha stumbled back, hand pressed to his neck, blood pouring between his fingers. His eyes went wide. You... He didn't finish the sentence. He collapsed. Riker stood over the body, breathing hard, swaying, then his legs gave out. Kaya ran. She crossed the throne room in seconds, dropped to her knees beside him. Her hands hovered over his wounds, not sure where to touch, where to help. Don't, Riker said. Don't what? Don't look at me like that. Like what? Like I'm dying. You are dying, you stubborn bastard, Riker laughed. It turned into a cough. Blood flecked his lips. Probably. Kate appeared beside them, knelt down, started assessing injuries with the efficiency of someone who'd done battlefield triage 100 times. Broken ribs, dislocated shoulder, deep lacerations across the torso, possible internal bleeding. He looked at Riker. You need a healer, now. The healers are in the south wing, Riker said, which is currently on fire. Then we move you. No. Riker's hand shot out, grabbed Cade's wrist. The palace, status. East wing secured, west wing holding, north wing breached but contained, south wing on fire. You said. Riker's grip tightened. The packs? 2 retreated, 1 still inside. Maybe 20 wolves left. Hunt them down. Riker, that's an order, General. Cade's jaw clenched. You can't even stand. Then I'll sit here and bleed. But those wolves don't leave this palace alive. If I leave you, you have your orders. Damn it, Riker. Go. The command wasn't loud, wasn't aggressive, but it was absolute. Cade looked at Kaya. Stay with him. I wasn't planning on leaving. He stood, started toward the door, stopped, turned back. If he dies while I'm gone, Cade said quietly, I'll never forgive you. If he dies, Kaya said, I'll never forgive myself. Cade nodded, left. The doors boomed shut, silence. Just Kaya and Riker and the bodies scattered across the throne room. Riker's head fell back against the rubble. His eyes closed. You shouldn't have come, he said. You're welcome. I'm serious. You should have stayed in my chambers where it was safe. It wasn't safe. Wolves broke through. Riker's eyes opened. What? 3 of them. Cade and I killed them. You killed wolves. Technically, I killed 2. Cade got the 3rd. With what? A sword. A spear. Improvisation. Riker stared at her. You're insane. So I've been told. You could have died. So could you. I'm a king. Dying in battle is expected. And I'm a prisoner. Dying in a cell is expected. So I figured if I'm going to die anyway, might as well make it interesting. Riker's lips twitched. Almost a smile. Interesting. That's one word for it. Kaya looked at his wounds. The blood was still flowing. Too much. Too fast. You need a healer, she said. I need a lot of things. Healer's pretty far down the list. Name the list. A functional palace. A loyal council that isn't currently scattered across the city. An army that didn't just get shredded by 3 packs. A kingdom that doesn't think I'm weak because I kept a prisoner alive. His eyes met hers. And about 6 hours of sleep. In that order? Sleep's negotiable. Kaya pulled off her shirt. She was wearing a thin undershirt beneath. The outer layer was already soaked in blood. Might as well use it. She pressed the fabric against the worst of Riker's wounds, the gash across his ribs. He hissed. Sorry, she said. Don't be. Just hurts. Everything hurts when you're stupid enough to fight 3 alphas alone. I wasn't alone. I had Cade for the first 2 minutes. And then you sent him away. I had priorities. Protecting me is not more important than protecting yourself. Yes, it is. The words were quiet, certain. Kaya's hands stilled. Why? Riker looked at her. Really looked at her. His eyes weren't feral anymore, weren't burning gold, just exhausted, human. Because for the first time in 10 years, he said slowly, someone looked at me and didn't see a king, didn't see a weapon, didn't see a title. You saw me, just me. And he stopped, swallowed. I didn't want to lose that. Kaya's chest tightened. She didn't know what to say. Didn't know how to process the fact that this man, this king, who could kill with a thought, who ruled through fear, who'd built an empire on dominance, was looking at her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. You barely know me, she said finally. I know enough. You know I'm defiant and stubborn and probably going to get you killed. I know you're the first person in a decade who's told me the truth instead of what I want to hear. I know you killed 2 wolves to save yourself instead of waiting for someone to rescue you. I know you came back to this throne room when you could have run. His hand moved, covered hers where she was pressing fabric to his wound. And I know that when I thought those alphas might get to you, I stopped caring about the kingdom and started caring about... He didn't finish, but Kaya heard it anyway, the unspoken word hanging between them. You. The doors slammed open. Not Cade. A woman. Tall. Dark hair. Dressed in leather armor that looked like it had seen 1,000 battles. A bow strapped to her back. Knives at her belt. She took in the scene. Riker bleeding on the floor, Kaya kneeling beside him, the bodies scattered everywhere, and her expression hardened. Well, she said, this is a mess. Riker's head turned. Mira. Don't Mira me. I leave the capital for 2 weeks and you start a war? I didn't start it. You kept a prisoner alive who challenged you in front of the entire council. What did you think was going to happen? Mira's eyes shifted to Kaya, cold, assessing. This her? Yes. She worth it? Riker didn't hesitate. Yes. Mira's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind her eyes. Disappointment, maybe. Or resignation. Fine, she said. Then let's keep you alive long enough to find out if you're right. She crossed the throne room, knelt beside Riker, started examining his wounds with practiced efficiency. Healer? Kaya asked. Scout, Mira said without looking up. But I've patched up enough idiots to know what I'm doing. Move! Kaya moved. Mira pulled supplies from a pack at her belt. Bandages, herbs, a needle and thread that made Kaya's stomach turn. This is going to hurt, Mira said. Everything hurts, Riker muttered. Then this is going to hurt more. She started stitching. Riker's jaw clenched, but he didn't make a sound. Kaya watched, felt useless, felt like she was standing in the middle of something she didn't understand. Who is she? Kaya asked quietly. Head scout, Riker said through gritted teeth. Outer Reaches specialist. Best tracker in 6 kingdoms. And childhood friend, Mira added. Her hands moved with brutal efficiency. Which means I'm allowed to tell him when he's being an idiot. Then tell him. I just did. Mira finished 1 stitch, started another. Her eyes flicked to Kaya. You fought? She asked. Yes. Killed? 2 wolves. Training. Outer Reaches survival. Mira's lips curved, not quite a smile. Explains why you're still breathing. She tied off the final stitch, started wrapping bandages. Tight, professional. You'll live, she told Riker, but you're not fighting again for at least a week. I'll fight tomorrow if I have to. You'll tear every stitch and bleed out, your choice. Riker pushed himself up. Mira tried to stop him. He ignored her. Got to his feet through sheer stubborn will. His legs shook but held. Report, he said. How bad is the city? Eastern quarter's a war zone, western quarter locked down, southern quarter on fire but contained, northern quarter holding. Casualties? Don't know yet. Hundreds, probably, maybe more. Riker's expression darkened. The packs? 2 retreated across the border, thirds being hunted by Cade and what's left of the guard. Council? Scattered. Lord Vex is dead, Lady Korth is missing. The rest are holed up in their estates waiting to see which way the wind blows. Cowards. Politicians, Mira corrected. Same thing, different word. Riker turned, looked at the destroyed throne room, at the bodies, at the cracked obsidian throne that had stood for 200 years and was now broken. They'll use this, he said quietly. The council, the territories. Everyone who's been waiting for me to show weakness. They'll use this attack as proof I'm losing control. Are you? Mira asked. Riker didn't answer. Mira's gaze shifted to Kaya. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you traded stability for... She gestured at Kaya. Whatever this is. Her name is Kaya. I don't care what her name is. I care about the fact that keeping her alive just cost you half your guard, a quarter of your city, and any credibility you had with the territories. That's not her fault. Isn't it? She's the excuse they used, the symbol, the proof that the Alpha King can be defied without consequences. She's also the reason I'm still breathing. Mira paused. What? She saved my life during the assassination attempt. What assassination attempt? Riker's jaw clenched. The one that happens in about 30 seconds if we're... What assassination attempt? Mira repeated, her hand already moving to the knife at her belt, eyes scanning every shadow in the destroyed throne room. Riker's gaze swept the space methodically. Every corner. Every body that might not be as dead as it appeared. Every pool of blood that could hide something waiting. The one that was supposed to happen during the chaos, he said, voice low and cold. When I was distracted. When my guards were scattered across the palace. When one more corpse in a room full of corpses wouldn't raise questions. Mira's blade cleared its sheath with a whisper of steel. You have proof? Or just paranoia? I have pattern recognition. 3 territory packs don't coordinate an attack this precise without inside information. Someone told them exactly where the guards would be stationed. Told them about the weak points in our defenses. Told them when to strike for maximum damage. Who? Riker's jaw clenched so hard Kaya could see the muscle jump beneath his skin. His eyes moved across the bodies of his own guards. Men who'd served him for years. Men who'd died defending a palace someone had sold out from within. Someone in the council, he said finally. Someone who knew my schedule. Knew I'd be in the throne room during the prisoner's interrogation. Knew Cade would be exactly where I sent him. Kaya felt her stomach drop. You think this was planned around me? I think you were convenient. The perfect excuse wrapped in defiance. Riker turned to face her fully. A prisoner who refused to kneel. A symbol of the king's weakness. They used you to justify the attack. But the attack was always coming. So I'm just... what? A convenient tool? You're a crack they exploited. But I created the crack by keeping you alive. His eyes held hers. Question is whether I'd do it again knowing what I know now. Before Kaya could respond, the east entrance opened. Not burst open. Not smashed by wolves or battered by soldiers. Opened. Deliberately. Quietly. Like someone who had every right to be there. Lord Vex walked in. Kaya remembered what Mira had said less than a minute ago. Vex was supposed to be dead. He looked exceptionally alive. Clean armor. Not a scratch. No blood except a few artful spatters that looked applied rather than earned. His sword was sheathed. His hands were empty. He looked like a man who'd spent the last hour somewhere very far from the fighting. Riker went absolutely still, the kind of stillness that came before an execution. Vex, he said, and his voice could have frozen water. Mira reported you were dead. Lord Vex's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Mira was misinformed, a simple miscommunication in the chaos of battle. You understand how these things happen? Do I? Bodies everywhere, screaming, blood. Easy to mistake someone unconscious for dead. I'm certain she meant well. Except you're not unconscious, not wounded, not even breathing hard. Riker took one step forward. His wounded leg barely held him, but he didn't let it show. Where were you during the attack? Securing the West Wing, as ordered. I gave no such order. General Arrow did. During the initial breach, he sent me to hold the western defenses while he attended to... Vex's gaze slid to Kaya like oil across stone. More pressing matters. The way he said it made Kaya's skin crawl. Mira moved, positioned herself between Vex and Riker, blade still drawn, body coiled like a spring. You're lying, she said flatly. Vex raised one eyebrow. Am I? You were gone for 2 weeks, Mira. Out in the territories. Scouting, playing tracker. A great deal can change in 2 weeks. Loyalties shift, priorities evolve. Kings make decisions that certain members of the council find, he paused, as if tasting the word, questionable. Questionable. Riker's voice was barely above a whisper. Explain. Keeping a prisoner who openly defied you in front of the entire council. Sending your most capable general to guard her instead of fighting beside you. Allowing 3 packs to breach the palace because you were too distracted by a woman from the outer reaches to see the real threat. Vex's expression hardened. You've gone soft, Riker. And soft kings don't survive long. Riker moved. Even wounded, even half dead, even with stitches tearing and blood seeping through fresh bandages, he crossed the space between them in 2 strides. His hand locked around Vex's throat, lifted him clear off the ground. Say that again, Riker growled, and his voice was no longer human. It was gravel and fury and wolf. I want to hear you say it one more time before I crush your windpipe and feed your corpse to whatever's left of those packs. Vex's face was turning purple. His hands clawed at Riker's grip, fingers scrabbling uselessly. But he was smiling. Actually smiling. You won't kill me, he choked out. Not without proof. Not without a proper trial, because that's what separates you from the animals in the outer reaches, isn't it? You have rules, you have laws, you have... Riker squeezed. Something in Vex's throat gave a wet, cracking sound. The smile disappeared. I am the law, Riker said quietly. And you just confessed to treason in front of witnesses. He dropped Vex. Let him collapse to the blood-slicked floor, gasping and clutching his throat, making sounds like a dying animal. Riker looked at Mira without breaking his stare from Vex's crumpled form. Search him. Mira moved with brutal efficiency. She knelt beside Vex and started going through his clothes like she was gutting a fish. Found a knife, a coin purse heavy with gold, and a sealed letter tucked into a hidden pocket sewn into the lining of his coat. She held up the letter. This was concealed. False pocket. Professional work. Open it. Mira broke the seal. The wax was fresh, applied within the last few hours. She unfolded the parchment, and her expression went from hard to murderous as she read. Well? Riker demanded. It's a contract. Mira's voice was cold enough to make frost. Signed by Lord Vex and representatives from the 3 territory packs that attacked us. Terms of agreement. Vex provides detailed intelligence on palace defenses, guard rotations, and the king's personal schedule. In exchange, he receives a seat on the new ruling council after Riker is overthrown and executed. The silence that followed was absolute. Even Vex stopped making his choking sounds. Then he started laughing. High-pitched, desperate, the kind of laughter that comes from a man who knows he's dead and has stopped caring about anything except taking others down with him. You think I'm alone in this? Vex gasped between laughs. You think I'm the only one who wants you gone? Half the council is tired of your absolute authority. Half the territories are waiting for you to show weakness so they can tear you apart. And you handed it to them. You handed them everything they needed when you kept that outer reaches whore alive instead of doing what any real king would. Riker's boot connected with Vex's ribs. The crack echoed through the throne room. Vex screamed. Riker kicked him again. And again. Each impact precise, controlled. Not the wild violence of rage, but the calculated brutality of a man who knew exactly how much damage each blow would cause. Kaya watched. Part of her wanted to look away. Part of her couldn't. This was the king everyone feared, the ruler who'd built an empire on dominance and terror, the weapon that walked like a man. Mira caught Riker's arm before he could deliver another kick. Enough. He sold out the palace. Riker's voice was raw. He got hundreds of people killed. Hundreds. He's a traitor, and he deserves to die, slowly, publicly. I agree. Mira's grip tightened on his arm. But not like this. Not while you're wounded and barely standing. Not while you're so angry you can't see straight. You want him dead, do it right. Do it like a king. Not like a what? Riker pulled his arm free. Like an animal? Like something from the outer reaches? That's what I am, Mira. That's what I've always been. A killer with a crown. No. The word came from Kaya. Both of them turned to look at her. She stepped forward. Her hands were shaking, but she kept them at her sides. You're not just a killer. If that's all you were, I'd be dead. Vex would be dead. Everyone who's ever questioned you would be dead. But they're not. Because somewhere underneath all that violence, you actually give a damn about doing things right. Riker stared at her. You don't know me. I know enough. Kaya met his eyes. I know you're more than what people fear, and I know that's exactly why they want you gone, because a king who actually cares is a lot harder to predict than one who just kills everything that moves. For a moment, something shifted in Riker's expression, then he turned away. Lock Vex in the dungeons, triple guard, no visitors, no food, no water. Let him contemplate his choices. And then? Mira asked. Public execution, 3 days. Make sure the entire city knows what happens to traitors. Mira nodded. She grabbed Vex by the collar and started dragging him toward the exit. Vex twisted in her grip, managed to turn his head enough to look at Kaya. Blood poured from his mouth when he spoke. This is your fault, he spat. Every death today, every body in these halls, every guard who died defending a palace I helped burn. It's all because of you, because you wouldn't kneel, because you had to be special. Kaya said nothing, because part of her believed him. Mira hauled Vex through the door. It slammed shut behind them. The silence that followed was suffocating. Riker stood in the center of the destroyed throne room, surrounded by corpses, surrounded by the physical evidence of his empire cracking. He's right, Kaya said quietly. Riker turned slowly. What? Vex. He's right. This is my fault. I'm the symbol they used, the excuse, the crack in your authority. If you'd killed me 3 days ago, none of this would have happened. The palace would still be secure. Those guards would still be alive. The city wouldn't be burning. Stop. It's true. I said stop. Riker's voice wasn't angry. It was tired. If I'd killed you 3 days ago, Vex would have found another excuse, another symbol, another way to exploit whatever weakness he imagined I had. This conspiracy didn't start with you. It just used you. That doesn't make it better, doesn't it? Riker walked closer, stopped within arm's reach. Do you regret it? Standing up to me, refusing to kneel, everything that came after. Kaya considered the question, really considered it. 3 days ago, she'd been dragged into this throne room expecting to die. She'd stood in chains and defied a king because she had nothing left to lose. Now she had something. She didn't have a name for it yet, didn't know if it was real or manipulation or something in between, but it was something. No, she said, I don't regret it. Even knowing what it cost? Even then. Riker's expression softened almost imperceptibly. Good, because I don't either. The doors burst open, Cade this time, covered in blood that clearly wasn't his, breathing hard, blade still drawn and dripping. Report, Riker said immediately. The remaining pack's been eliminated. 43 wolves confirmed dead. We did a sweep of the entire palace. No survivors. Our casualties? Cade's expression went grim. 87 guards, 32 servants. We're still counting civilian deaths in the Eastern Quarter, but early estimates put it over 200. The number landed like a physical blow. Over 300 dead. In a single coordinated attack. Because someone on the inside had sold them out. Status of the council? Riker asked, and his voice was carved from ice. 6 members accounted for and secured in their quarters under guard. 3 are missing. Lord Vex, Lady Korth, and General Thane. Vex is in custody, confirmed traitor. Korth? Her estate is empty. No signs of struggle. No body. No servants. It's like she vanished. She ran, Riker said flatly. Which means she was either part of the conspiracy or smart enough to see it coming and evacuated before everything went to hell. And Thane? Riker's entire body went rigid. What about Thane? No one's seen him since the attack started. He was supposed to be commanding the eastern defenses, but there's no record of him giving any orders. No one saw him fight. No one saw him fall. He just disappeared. The implications hung in the air like poison gas. General Thane, one of Riker's most trusted commanders, a veteran of the border wars, a man who'd fought beside Riker for years, missing during the single most coordinated attack on the palace in a decade. Find him, Riker said quietly. Now, search every room, every corridor, every hole in this palace where a man could hide. And when you find him, bring him to me alive. I want answers. You think he's involved? I think anyone not accounted for during an attack this coordinated is suspect, especially a general who should have been on the front lines and wasn't. Cade nodded, started to leave. stopped. "There's something else," he said carefully. "What?" "While we were hunting the remaining wolves, we found something in the east wing, a room, hidden behind a false wall in what used to be servant quarters. It had been used recently, within the last few weeks." Riker's eyes sharpened. "Used for what?" "Planning. There were maps of the palace with detailed annotations, guard rotation schedules going back 6 months, lists of council members with notes about who could be turned and who needed to be eliminated." Cade paused. "And there was a timeline. This attack was scheduled 3 weeks ago." The room went very still. Kaya felt the blood drain from her face. "Say that again," Riker said slowly. "The attack was planned 3 weeks before Kaya ever crossed into Virex. She wasn't the catalyst. She was just convenient timing," Riker finished, his jaw clenched. "Show me, now." "You can barely walk." "I said show me." Cade looked at Kaya. Something shifted in his expression. Warning, concern. "You should come too," he said. "Why?" Kaya asked. "Because one of the maps has your cell marked, specifically, with multiple notations, and I think you need to see what they say." Kaya's blood turned to ice. They followed Cade through the palace, down corridors that still smelled like smoke and death, past guards clearing bodies into piles, past servants on their knees scrubbing blood from stone floors. The East Wing was devastation incarnate. Fire had gutted half the rooms. The other half looked like something with very large claws had systematically destroyed everything inside. Cade led them to what appeared to be abandoned servant quarters. 4 small rooms that hadn't been used in years based on the dust and cobwebs. He stopped at a section of wall that looked completely ordinary. "Here," he said. He pressed a specific stone. Something clicked deep in the wall. A section swung inward on hidden hinges. Behind it was a room, maybe 10 feet square. No windows, lit by oil lamps that were still burning, which meant someone had been here recently. The walls were covered in maps. Detailed maps. Professional maps. The kind military strategists used. Palace layouts with guard positions marked. Territory boundaries with force estimates. City maps with supply routes highlighted. And in the center of the largest map, a red circle around the South Tower, around Kaya's cell. Someone had written in the margin in neat, precise handwriting, "Prisoner refuses to kneel. Psychology profile suggests strong defiance reflex rooted in childhood trauma. Use as symbol of King's weakness. Turn counsel against King's judgment. Create opening for primary attack." Kaya stared at the words, read them again, and again. This entire thing had been orchestrated, not around her, but using her. Someone had predicted she'd refuse to kneel, had predicted Riker would find that intriguing instead of offensive, had predicted the exact sequence of events that would make the council question their king's judgment. "Who wrote this?" she asked. Her voice sounded strange, distant, like it belonged to someone else. Cade shook his head. "We don't know yet. The handwriting doesn't match anyone in our records. We're still trying to identify it." Riker walked to the map. His finger traced the red circle around the tower. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes were burning. "They knew," he said quietly. "They knew I'd keep you alive." "How could they know that?" "Because they know me." Riker's finger moved to another notation near the throne room. "Subject's weakness. Fundamental isolation. Exploit through authentic connection." He looked at Kaya. "They knew I was alone. Knew I was looking for something real in a palace full of people who only see the crown, and they weaponized it." "They weaponized both of us," Kaya corrected. Her throat was tight. "What do you mean?" "Look at the timeline. They didn't just predict you'd keep me alive. They predicted I'd—" She stopped. Couldn't finish, because the words on the map finished for her. Riker read them aloud. "Predicted outcome. Prisoner saves King during coordinated attack. King's trust solidifies. Emotional connection established. Proceed to Phase 2. He looked at Kaya. "Phase 2? What the hell is Phase 2? Kaya walked to a different map. This one showed the city. The eastern quarter, where most of the civilian casualties had occurred, was marked with dozens of small X symbols. Beside the X symbols, a note. Targeted casualties. Families of loyalist guards. Merchants who supply palace. Blacksmiths who forge weapons. Anyone who reinforces King's power base. Estimated deaths, 200 to 250. 250. Not collateral damage. Targeted murders. People killed specifically because they supported Riker. They're not just trying to take your throne, Kaya said slowly. They're trying to break you first. Make you doubt yourself. Make you doubt everyone around you. Destroy your support before they destroy you. Which is why they needed you, Riker said. His voice was hollow. Someone I'd trust. Someone who felt real when everything else was performance. Someone who could get close enough to... He stopped. His eyes went to another notation on the map. This one was circled in red ink. It read, Phase 2. Once King's trust is established, use prisoner as blade. King will prioritize protection over survival. Creates vulnerability, exploit for final strike. The room went very cold. Use prisoner as blade, Kaya repeated. What does that mean? No one answered, because the door behind them slammed shut. All three of them spun. General Thane stood blocking the exit. The missing general. Clean armor. No blood. No wounds. Not even dust on his boots. He looked like a man who'd spent the entire battle somewhere very far away. In his hand, a loaded crossbow, aimed directly at Riker's chest. It means exactly what it says, Thane said calmly. You're the blade. And you don't even know it yet. Cade's hand moved toward his weapon. Don't, Thane said. The crossbow shifted, now aimed at Cade's head. You're fast, possibly the fastest swordsman I've ever seen. But you're not faster than a crossbow bolt at 15 feet. And at this range, even a mediocre shot doesn't miss. Cade froze. His hand hovered over his sword hilt. Riker took one step forward. His wounded leg nearly buckled, but his face showed nothing. Thane, what are you doing? What I should have done 5 years ago when you murdered my brother and took his throne like some barbarian warlord. The words landed like stones in still water. Riker's expression didn't change. Your brother challenged me. That's how succession works. My brother challenged you to a formal duel. You agreed to the terms, and then you crushed his skull with your bare hands in front of the entire court and mounted it on that throne like a hunting trophy. Thane's voice cracked just slightly. That's not succession, that's butchery. He knew the risks. He trusted you to fight with honor. Honor doesn't win wars, it doesn't hold kingdoms, it doesn't keep your people alive. Riker's eyes were cold. Your brother was weak. He was letting Virex fall apart because he was too concerned with propriety to make the hard choices. I did what needed to be done. You did what you wanted to do, and I've spent 5 years watching you rule through fear while pretending it's strength, waiting for the right moment to take back what you stole. By orchestrating an attack that killed hundreds of innocent people? By orchestrating an attack that proves you're unfit to rule? Thane's finger moved to the trigger. You kept a prisoner alive because she made you feel less alone. You abandoned your position to protect a woman you've known for 3 days. You showed weakness, and weakness in a king is treason against the kingdom itself. So you murdered your own people, allied with territory pacts who would have slaughtered everyone in this palace, killed guards who served loyally, all for revenge wrapped in righteousness. Call it what you want. The result is the same. You lose the throne. I take it. Virex gets a leader who understands that power requires sacrifice, not sentiment. And what happens to me? Riker asked quietly. You die, obviously. Thane's smile was cold, along with your loyal general, and your outer reach's distraction. Kaya's hand moved. Not toward a weapon, she didn't have one. Toward Riker. She grabbed his arm, yanked him sideways with every ounce of strength she had. The crossbow fired. The bolt whistled through the space where Riker's chest had been a heartbeat before, embedded itself in the wooden map behind him with a solid thunk. Cade exploded into motion. His blade cleared its sheath mid-stride. He crossed the 15 feet between himself and Thane in less than 2 seconds. Thane dropped the crossbow, drew his sword, met Cade's attack with a clash of steel that made Kaya's ears ring. Riker spun toward Kaya. Are you... I'm fine. Fight! She didn't have to tell him twice. Riker launched himself at Thane, even wounded, even with stitches tearing and blood soaking through bandages, even barely able to stand. He fought like something beyond human. Claws versus steel. Instinct versus training. King versus traitor. The room was too small. too cramped with maps and furniture and 3 people trying to kill each other. Bodies slammed into walls, blades scraped stone, blood sprayed across the carefully drawn maps. Kaya pressed herself into the corner, watching, useless. No weapon, no training that would help in a space this confined against opponents this skilled. Cade drove his blade toward Thane's exposed throat. Thane deflected with a move that spoke of decades of training. Spun. Brought his own blade around toward Cade's ribs. Riker caught Thane's wrist mid-swing, twisted hard. Bone cracked like a tree branch. Thane screamed, dropped his sword. Riker's claws went for his throat. Thane ducked under the strike. Drove his knee into Riker's wounded ribs. The stitches tore with a wet sound. Blood poured. Riker stumbled. Thane grabbed a knife from his belt. Lunged. Cade intercepted. His blade flashed, caught Thane's knife hand, cut deep enough to see bone. The knife clattered across the floor. Thane backed toward the door. Bleeding from a dozen wounds, breathing hard, eyes wild with pain and something that might have been satisfaction, still smiling. "You think killing me stops this?" he gasped. "I'm one piece, one part of a machine that's been running for 5 years. There are others. Others you trust. Others who smile at you during council meetings and sharpen knives behind closed doors. Others who are waiting for the exact right moment to finish what I started." "Who?" Riker demanded. His voice was raw. "You'll find out, when it's too late to stop them. When everything you built comes crashing down and you finally understand that keeping that outer reaches bitch alive was the beginning of your end." He turned, ran. Cade started after him. Riker caught his arm. "Let him go." "What? Why?" "Because if we chase him into the palace, we leave Kaya unprotected in a room full of maps that detail exactly how to use her against me. And I'm not making that mistake." Cade looked like he wanted to argue. His jaw worked, his hand tightened on his sword, but he stayed. They all turned back to the room, to the maps covering every surface, to the detailed evidence of a conspiracy that went so deep Kaya couldn't see the bottom. She stared at the wall, at the notation about her, about trust, about being used as a blade. "They knew exactly how this would play out," she said. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Every step, every decision, every moment from the second I walked into that throne room until right now, it's all been scripted." Riker walked to the map. His finger traced the timeline. Day 1. Prisoner arrives, refuses to kneel. Day 2. King orders imprisonment instead of execution. Council questions judgment. Day 3. Palace attack. Prisoner saves king. Trust established. Day 4. The notation for Day 4 was blank, waiting to be filled in. "What happens on Day 4, Kaya asked. Riker didn't answer, because the door opened again. Mira, dragging someone, a woman, unconscious, bleeding from a head wound. Lady Korth. Mira dropped her on the floor without ceremony. Found her at the south gate trying to leave the city. She had maps, gold, enough supplies to disappear for a year. She was running, Cade said. She was escaping. There's a difference." Mira knelt, slapped Korth's face hard enough to leave a red mark. "Wake up." Korth's eyes opened, unfocused, terrified. When they found Riker, something in them broke. "Please," she whispered. "Please, I didn't—" Mira slapped her again. "Where's Thane?" "I don't know." Wrong answer. Mira's knife appeared in her hand, pressed against Korth's throat. "Try again." "He's gone. He said if the palace attack failed, he'd activate the contingency and disappear. That's all I know. I swear. I swear I didn't know about the civilians. I didn't know he'd kill so many. What contingency?" Riker's voice cut through her panic like a blade. Korth's eyes moved to Kaya, stayed there. "Her," she whispered. "The prisoner. She's the contingency." Every drop of warmth left Kaya's body. "Explain," Riker said. "Now. The maps. The notations. All of it was designed to make you trust her, to make you dependent on her, to make her presence in your life feel like the first real thing you'd experienced in years. And then," Korth's voice broke, "and then when you were most vulnerable, when you'd lowered all your defenses, she'd become the weapon that destroyed you." "How?" Kaya demanded. "How am I supposed to be a weapon when I didn't even know any of this existed?" "That's the point," Korth was crying now. "You don't have to know. You just have to be exactly what you are. someone he cares about, someone he'll sacrifice himself to protect, someone who makes him human instead of the Alpha King. And when the final attack comes, when everything falls apart, you'll be the reason he hesitates, the reason he makes the wrong choice, the reason he dies. Silence. Absolute silence. Riker turned slowly, looked at Kaya, and for the first time since they'd met, she saw something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Doubt. Real, genuine doubt. Riker, she said quietly, I didn't know. I swear on everything I am, I didn't know about any of this. How convenient, Mira said from where she knelt over Korth. The Outer Reaches stranger appears exactly when the conspiracy needs her, refuses to kneel exactly as predicted, survives exactly long enough to gain your trust, and now we discover she's been designed as a weapon to kill you. I'm not a weapon. Prove it. How? Kaya's voice cracked. How do I prove I'm not part of something I didn't even know existed until 5 minutes ago? You can't, Mira said flatly. Which is exactly the problem. Whether you knew or not, whether you're complicit or just unlucky, the result is the same. You're a liability, a walking vulnerability, and as long as you're alive, you're a threat to the king. Mira, Cade said quietly, that's reality. Mira stood. Her knife was still in her hand. I've known Riker for 15 years. I've watched him build this kingdom from blood and bones. I've seen him make impossible choices and survive impossible odds. And in all that time, I've never seen him show weakness. Until her. She pointed the knife at Kaya. So here's what's going to happen. We lock her in the South Tower under maximum guard until we figure out who else is part of this conspiracy. And if we can't verify her story, if we can't prove she's not a weapon waiting to activate, then we eliminate the threat before it eliminates the king. You mean kill her, Kaya said. I mean protect Virex, whatever that takes. Kaya looked at Riker, waiting for him to say something, to defend her, to tell Mira she was wrong. He said nothing, just stood there, bleeding, staring at Kaya like she was a puzzle that had suddenly revealed itself to be a trap. Riker, Kaya tried again. Tell me you don't believe this. Tell me you know I'm not part of this. His jaw clenched. I want to believe you. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. He looked at Cade. Take her to the South Tower. Triple guard. No visitors. No exceptions. What? The word came out strangled. You're imprisoning me again? I'm protecting you. I'm protecting myself. Until I can figure out what's real and what's been manipulated from the beginning. I saved your life. Did you? Or were you following a script designed to make me trust you exactly enough to be vulnerable? Riker's voice was cold now, distant, the king speaking, not the man. I can't tell the difference anymore. And until I can, you're a threat I can't afford to ignore. Riker, please, I said take her. Cade moved forward. His hand closed around Kaya's arm, gentle but firm. She tried to pull away. Don't do this. Don't let them win. Don't let them make you doubt what you know is real. What do I know is real? Riker turned away from her, faced the maps on the wall. I don't know anymore. I don't know if anything between us was genuine or if I've been played perfectly from the moment you walked into that throne room. And until I know for certain, I can't afford to trust you. So you're just going to lock me up? I'm going to lock you up until I find everyone involved in this conspiracy. Until I get real answers. Until I know whether keeping you alive was the best decision I ever made or the worst mistake that will cost me everything I've built. Cade pulled her toward the door. This time, Kaya didn't fight. What was the point? She'd spent 3 days earning Riker's trust and 3 minutes watching it shatter. The walk back to the South Tower was silent. Guards stared as they passed, whispered. Everyone in the palace knew by now. The prisoner who wouldn't kneel, the woman who'd somehow gotten close to the king. The latest threat to Virex's stability. The tower door opened, 73 stairs. Kaya climbed them without help, without stumbling. The cell at the top was exactly as she remembered, 10 feet in diameter, stone walls, stone floor, one narrow window, the same cell she'd been freed from just hours ago. Cade stood in the doorway. His expression was unreadable. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I don't think you knew. I think you're telling the truth. Then why aren't you stopping this? Because truth doesn't matter if the king can't trust it. And right now, Riker can't trust anything, including himself. Cade paused. I'm sorry. The door closed. The locks clicked. 1, 2, 3. Kaya stood in the center of the cell and tried to breathe. Tried to understand how everything had fallen apart so completely. 3 days ago, she was nobody. A prisoner expecting to die. Now she was a weapon. A weapon she hadn't known she was carrying. A weapon designed to destroy the one person who'd made her feel human again. She walked to the window, looked out at the burning city, at the smoke rising from the eastern quarter where over 200 people had been murdered to weaken Riker's power base. At the palace below, crawling with guards, trying to secure a breach that had come from within. At a kingdom tearing itself apart because someone had decided the king needed to fall, and had used her as the knife. The worst part wasn't the imprisonment, wasn't the fear or the uncertainty or the knowledge that Mira would probably kill her if they couldn't prove her innocence. The worst part was the look in Riker's eyes, the doubt. The moment when everything they'd built, fragile and new, and maybe not even real, cracked under the weight of a conspiracy neither of them had seen coming. Kaya pressed her forehead against the cold iron bars, and for the first time since she was 8 years old, standing in a grain barrel surrounded by the corpses of her pack, she felt completely and utterly alone. The hours crawled by like wounded animals. Kaya sat on the cot, stood at the window, paced the 10-foot circle until her feet ached, tried not to think about the maps, about the notations, about the words, "Use prisoner as blade," written in handwriting she'd never seen. Tried not to think about the look in Riker's eyes when he'd ordered her locked away. Doubt. That's what would kill them both. Not swords, not conspiracies, not even Thane, and whatever network of traitors he'd built over 5 years. Doubt was the real weapon. And it was already working. The sun set. The city below went dark except for fires still burning in the eastern quarter. She could hear distant shouting, bells ringing, the sounds of a kingdom trying to hold itself together after being gutted from within. No one came. No food, no water, no guards checking on her. Just silence and stone and the growing certainty that Mira's solution, eliminate the threat before it eliminates the king, was already in motion. Kaya was examining the window bars for the 100th time, knowing they wouldn't budge but needing to do something with her hands when she heard it. Footsteps on the stairs. Heavy. Multiple people. She turned toward the door. Her heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. The locks clicked open. 1, 2, 3. The door swung wide. Cade stood in the doorway. Alone this time. No guards flanking him. His sword was sheathed, but his hand rested on the hilt. His face was grim. "Come with me," he said. "Why?" "Because Riker wants to see you." "So he can execute me himself?" "So he can talk to you, that's all I know." Cade's expression didn't change. "You can walk or I can carry you. Your choice." Kaya walked, down the 73 stairs, through corridors that were quieter now. Most of the bodies had been cleared. Most of the blood had been scrubbed away. But the smell remained. Death didn't wash out that easily. They didn't go to the throne room. They went to Riker's private chambers. The same rooms where she'd killed 2 wolves what felt like a lifetime ago. The guards at the door nodded to Cade and stepped aside without question. Inside, the space was different than Kaya remembered. The weapon racks had been cleared, the scent markers removed. It looked less like a war room and more like someone actually lived there. Riker stood by the window, his back to the door, shirtless. Fresh bandages wrapped around his ribs and shoulder. His wounds had been properly treated this time. She could smell the herbs and poultices. He didn't turn when they entered. "Leave us," he said quietly. Cade hesitated. "My king." "I said, leave us, General." Cade's jaw tightened, but he nodded, walked out. The door closed with a finality that made Kaya's skin prickle. She stood just inside the room, waiting. Riker still didn't turn. He stared out at the burning city like he was trying to memorize every detail of its destruction. "I've been thinking," he said finally, "about what Korth said. About you being a weapon I didn't know I was holding. About how the conspiracy planned for me to trust you, planned for me to care." He paused. "And I realized something." "What?" It doesn't matter. Kaya blinked. What? It doesn't matter if they planned it. Doesn't matter if every moment between us was predicted on some map in a hidden room. Doesn't matter if you're supposed to be the blade that kills me. Riker turned. His eyes found hers. Because here's the truth. I've spent 10 years alone. 10 years surrounded by people who fear me or use me or want something from me. 10 years where every conversation was calculated. Every interaction was performance. Every single day felt like I was wearing armor I couldn't take off. He walked closer. And then you walked into my throne room in chains and looked at me like I was just a man. Like the crown didn't matter. Like the power didn't matter. Like all that mattered was whether I was going to be honest or just another king hiding behind authority. He stopped 3 feet away. That felt real. For the first time in a decade, something felt real. And I don't care if it was manipulated. I don't care if it was predicted. Because I'd rather have 3 days of something real and die for it than spend another 10 years surviving in isolation. Kaya's throat was tight. You think I'm going to kill you? I think someone wants to use you to kill me. There's a difference. Is there? Yes, because you get to choose. You've always gotten to choose. That's what they didn't predict. They thought they could script you, control you, point you like a weapon. But you've never let anyone control you. Not me, not them, not anyone. How do you know what? Because if you wanted me dead, I'd already be dead. You've had a dozen chances. In the throne room when I was wounded. In this room when we were alone. During the attack when everything was chaos. You didn't take any of them. Riker's voice dropped. So either you're the worst assassin in history, or you're exactly what you appear to be. Someone who survived by refusing to be owned. Kaya wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that trust could be rebuilt this easily. But nothing in her life had ever been easy. What if they're right, she said quietly. What if I am a weapon and I just don't know it yet? What if there's some trigger, some word or situation that makes me turn on you without even realizing it? Then I'll deal with it when it happens. But I'm not going to lock you in a tower and treat you like a threat because of something you might do. That's fear. And fear is how they win. Fear is how you survive. No. Riker closed the distance between them, reached out. His hand cupped her face gently. Fear is how you exist. Trust is how you survive. And I'm done just existing. His thumb traced her cheekbone. The touch was careful, deliberate, like he was memorizing the feel of her skin. Kaya's breath caught. This is insane. You know that, right? Everything about this is insane. Probably. You're an Alpha King. I'm an Outer Reaches nobody. We've known each other for 3 days. 3 days. And you're willing to bet your entire kingdom on the idea that I'm not going to destroy you. I'm betting my kingdom on the idea that you're the first real thing I've found in 10 years. And if I'm wrong, he smiled. It was small, sad. Then at least I'll die having felt something other than emptiness. Kaya didn't know what to say. Didn't know how to process the fact that this man, this king who ruled through dominance and fear, who'd built an empire on the corpses of his enemies, was standing here making himself completely vulnerable because he was tired of being alone. Riker! The window exploded. Glass shattered inward. Something hit the floor and rolled. Riker's eyes went wide. Get down! He tackled Kaya to the floor, covered her body with his. The device detonated. Not an explosion, not fire. Gas. Thick. Yellow. It filled the room in seconds. Kaya tried to hold her breath, but her lungs were already screaming. The impact with the floor had knocked the air from her chest. She gasped. Couldn't help it. The gas tasted like copper and rot. Her vision blurred. Her limbs went heavy. She heard Riker shouting something, felt his hands on her face, felt him trying to drag her toward the door. Then nothing. Darkness swallowed everything. Kaya woke to screaming, not hers, someone else's, distant, echoing. She opened her eyes. Her head felt like it had been split open and poorly reassembled. Everything was blurry, spinning. She was on a cold stone floor, hands bound behind her back, ankles tied. The ropes were rough, professional knots. She blinked, forced her vision to focus. A cell, but not the South Tower. This was deeper, underground, the dungeons. Torches on the walls, iron bars, the smell of mold and old fear. Across from her, Riker, also bound, also on the floor. Blood running from a gash on his forehead. His eyes were open but unfocused. "Riker," she tried to say. It came out as a croak. His head turned, their eyes met. Relief flooded his face. "You're alive." "Barely. What happened?" "Gas grenade. Through the window. Knocked us both out. When I came to, we were already down here." Kaya tested her bindings. The ropes didn't budge. Whoever had tied them knew what they were doing. Footsteps echoed from somewhere beyond the bars. Multiple people approaching. The dungeon door opened. General Thane walked in. His broken wrist was splinted now. His knife hand was bandaged. But he was walking, smiling. Behind him, 6 guards, not palace guards. These wore different armor. Territory markers. Mercenaries. And behind them, someone Kaya didn't recognize. A woman, tall, thin, face hidden by a hood. "Good," Thane said. "You're both awake. Excellent timing." Riker's voice was rough but steady. "You're a dead man, Thane." "Am I?" "Because from where I'm standing, you're the one tied up in a cell while I control the palace dungeons and have enough mercenaries stationed throughout the city to hold Steelhaven for at least a week." Thane crouched down outside the bars. "Tell me, Riker, how does it feel? Being powerless, being at someone else's mercy, being the one in chains for once. I'm going to rip your spine out through your throat. Such violence, such anger. This is exactly why you're unfit to rule." Thane stood, gestured to the hooded woman. "Come, let him see you. Let him understand how completely he's been played." The woman stepped forward, lowered her hood. Kaya's blood went cold. She recognized that face. Mira, Riker's head scout, his childhood friend, the woman who'd stitched his wounds and stood guard while he was vulnerable, the woman he'd trusted for 15 years. "No," Riker whispered. His voice was broken glass. "No, not you. Anyone but you." Mira's expression was carved from stone. "I'm sorry, Riker. I truly am. But you gave me no choice. I gave you everything. I trusted you with my life. And I've spent 15 years watching you become everything you swore you'd never be. You said you'd be different from the old king. You said you'd rule with strength, not tyranny. But look at what you've become. A man so isolated he mistakes a prisoner's defiance for connection, so desperate for something real that he abandons his kingdom for a woman he's known for 3 days. You did this?" Riker's voice was shaking. "The conspiracy, the maps, the attack. All of it?" "Not all of it. Thane planned the attack. Vex handled the council corruption. I provided the intelligence, the guard rotations, the defensive weaknesses, everything they needed to make it work." Mira's jaw clenched. "And I provided the prisoner." Kaya's heart stopped. "What?" Mira's eyes shifted to her. "You think it was coincidence you crossed into Virex territory exactly when you did? That you killed that territorial alpha in the Northern Pass and got arrested at the perfect moment? That you were brought to Riker's throne room instead of being executed on sight like every other rogue who crosses our borders? You set me up. I created the circumstances. I made sure you'd be captured alive, made sure you'd be brought before Riker, made sure the council would be present to witness your defiance." Mira's voice was cold, clinical. "I studied you for weeks before you ever crossed the border, read reports from the outer reaches, built a psychological profile, predicted exactly how you'd react when confronted with absolute authority. You predicted I'd refuse to kneel. I predicted you'd be unable to kneel. Trauma response, childhood pack slaughter, survival mechanisms built on autonomy and resistance to control. You're psychologically incapable of submission. It's not a choice. It's programming." Mira looked at Riker. "And I knew he'd find that irresistible. A woman who couldn't be dominated, couldn't be controlled. The one thing he'd never encountered before." Riker was staring at Mira like she'd physically gutted him. "You manipulated both of us. I used what was already there, your isolation, her trauma. I just pointed them at each other and let nature take its course." "Why?" The word came out strangled. "Why would you do this to me?" "Because you're killing Virex." Mira's composure cracked. "You rule through fear. You execute anyone who questions you. You've turned this kingdom into a prison where everyone's terrified to breathe wrong. The old king was weak, yes, but at least people could live without constant terror. At least they had hope. I brought stability. You brought tyranny wrapped in order. And when that prisoner walked into your throne room and showed you what you've become, showed you that you're just a lonely tyrant desperate for connection, I knew. I knew you'd sacrifice everything for her. Your judgment, your authority, your kingdom, everything. Silence. The kind that preceded something irreversible. Thane stepped forward. Enough history. Time for the finale. He looked at Riker. Here's what happens next. You're going to abdicate, publicly, in front of whatever's left of the Council and the citizens of Steelhaven. You're going to confess that you're unfit to rule, that your judgment has been compromised, that Virex needs new leadership. I'll never... You will. Because if you don't, we kill her. Thane pointed at Kaya. Slowly. We make you watch every second. We make her scream until you break. And you will break, because that's your weakness. You care about her. Riker's eyes blazed gold. His body tensed. The ropes around his wrists started to fray as his muscles expanded. Partial shift. Claws extending. I'll kill you, he growled. I'll kill all of you. I'll tear this entire dungeon apart. One of the mercenaries stepped forward, pressed a crossbow bolt against Kaya's throat. Riker froze. Shift fully, and she dies before you break those ropes, Thane said calmly. Make any move we don't like, and she dies. Try to escape, and she dies. You understand the pattern? Riker's claws retracted slowly. The gold faded from his eyes. His body went still. Completely still. The stillness of a predator being leashed. Good, Thane said. You're learning. Now, you have until dawn tomorrow to decide. Abdicate peacefully, and she lives. You both get escorted to the border and exiled. You never return to Virex, never contact anyone in the kingdom. You disappear into the outer reaches, and we never hear from you again. And if I refuse? Then we find out exactly how much pain the outer reaches survivor can endure before she breaks. And we make you watch every second, every cut, every burn, every scream, until you're begging to abdicate just to make it stop. Kaya's voice cut through the tension. Don't do it. Everyone turned to look at her. Don't give them what they want, she said. Her voice was steady, clear. They need your abdication to legitimize their coup. Without it, they're just traitors who murdered their king. With it, they're saviors who removed a tyrant. Don't give them that. She's right, Riker said quietly. He was looking at Kaya now, only at her. They need me to break, to publicly admit weakness. It's the only way this works. Which is why you're going to do it, Thane said, because the alternative is watching her die. No. Kaya met Riker's eyes. I've been dying since I was 8 years old. Another day won't make a difference. Kaya, I mean it. You don't kneel for them. You don't give them your kingdom. You fight, even if it costs you everything, even if it costs you me. Something shifted in Riker's expression. Pain, pride, grief. All of it mixed together. You sound like me, he said softly. 10 years ago, before I knew what it cost. Then you know I'm right. I also know I was alone then, and I'm tired of being alone. So you'll sacrifice a kingdom for one person? I'll sacrifice anything to keep you alive. The words landed like stones in still water. Thane smiled. Perfect. This is exactly what I wanted. The mighty Alpha King reduced to sentiment, willing to trade his crown for a woman he barely knows. You've already lost, Riker. You just don't realize it yet. Maybe, Riker said. Or maybe you don't understand what happens when you back an alpha into a corner and give him nothing left to lose. Meaning? Meaning you want me to abdicate publicly, in front of the council, in front of the citizens. You need the spectacle, the legitimacy, which means you need me alive and cooperative. Riker's eyes blazed, which means you need leverage. And right now, you only have one piece of leverage. Her. That's all I need. Is it? Riker's voice dropped. Because here's what I'm willing to do. You want to torture her to make me break? Go ahead. Try it. See what happens when you hurt her. You'll abdicate faster. No, I'll shift fully. I'll break these ropes. I'll kill every single person in this room starting with you. And I'll do it so fast your mercenaries won't have time to pull a trigger. You think that crossbow bolt will stop me? You think anything will stop me once you've given me a reason to stop pretending I'm civilized? Thane's smile wavered, just slightly. You're bluffing. Am I? You've been planning this for 5 years. You've studied me, built profiles, predicted my responses. Tell me, Thane, what do the profiles say happens when you threaten what an alpha considers his? The dungeon went very quiet. Because everyone in that room knew the answer, alphas didn't negotiate when it came to protection. They didn't compromise. They didn't calculate costs. They destroyed threats. Completely. Brutally. Without hesitation. And Riker had just claimed Kaya as his. You're insane, Thane said. Probably, but I'm also done playing by your rules. So here's my counteroffer. You let her go. Right now. You escort her out of this palace and make sure she gets safely beyond the city walls. And in exchange, I'll abdicate. Publicly. Exactly as you want. Why would I agree to that when I already have all the leverage? Because if you don't, I'm going to stop caring about survival, stop caring about kingdoms and crowns and consequences, and I'm going to become the exact monster you've spent 5 years trying to prove I am. Riker's voice was absolutely calm. You want to see what that looks like? Hurt her. Give me one reason to stop pretending I'm a king instead of a weapon. I dare you. The mercenary with the crossbow looked at Thane. Uncertain. Thane's jaw clenched. You're willing to trade your kingdom for her life. Without hesitation. That's weakness. That's choice. There's a difference. Riker's eyes never left Thane's face. You have until I finish talking to decide. Let her go, and you get your abdication. Keep her, and you get a bloodbath that ends with every person in this room dead, including you. Starting in 5, 4, 3... Wait. Thane's hand went up. Wait. 2... Fine. We release the prisoner, but you abdicate first. We're not giving up our leverage until we have what we want. Not how this works. She walks first. Then I abdicate. Those are the terms. And if you're lying, if she walks and you refuse to abdicate, then hunt me down and kill me. I'll be alone. Vulnerable. Easy target. But she'll be free, and that's all that matters. Thane studied Riker's face, looking for deception, for weakness, for some sign this was a trap. He found nothing but absolute certainty. This is insane, Thane muttered, but he nodded to the mercenaries. Cut her bindings, escort her to the south gate. Make sure she gets outside the walls. The mercenary lowered the crossbow, moved to cut Kaya's ropes. No, Kaya said. Everyone froze. What? Riker's voice was sharp. I said no, I'm not leaving. Kaya, you're sacrificing your kingdom for me, your crown, everything you've built. I'm not letting you do that. You don't have a choice. Don't I? Kaya looked at the mercenary, at the knife in his hand about to cut her bindings. Don't cut these ropes. Leave me tied. I'm not going anywhere. Kaya, what are you doing? Riker's voice was rising, panic bleeding through. Refusing to be the reason you destroy yourself. You said I always get to choose. This is my choice. I stay. Whatever happens next, we face it together. You'll die! Maybe. But I won't die knowing I let someone sacrifice everything for me. I've spent 15 years surviving alone. Being alone. Never letting anyone close enough to matter. And then you... Her voice cracked. You made me matter. You made me feel like I was worth something other than survival. I'm not throwing that away by running. Riker's face was a mask of anguish. Please, Kaya, just go. Let me do this one thing. Let me keep you safe. No, because keeping me safe means losing yourself, and I'd rather die beside you than live knowing I'm the reason you fell. Silence. Absolute silence. Thane looked between them. His expression shifted from triumph to frustration to something that might have been grudging respect. Well, he said finally, this is inconvenient. Mira stepped forward. Her face was pale. Cut her bindings anyway. Drag her out if you have to. Won't work, Kaya said. I'll fight. I'll scream. I'll make enough noise that every guard in this palace will hear. You want legitimacy? You want a clean co? That ends the second you have to violently remove a prisoner while the king is begging you not to. She's right, Thane said quietly. He was staring at Kaya now with undisguised hatred. She's backed us into the same corner Riker did. We can't torture her because he'll go feral. Can't release her because she refuses to leave. Can't kill her quickly because then we lose our leverage entirely. So what do we do? One of the mercenaries asked. Thane's smile returned, slow, cold. We changed the game. If they want to die together, let them. We don't need the abdication anymore. We'll say Riker went mad, attacked his own guards, died in the chaos. The prisoner died trying to defend him. Tragic, violent, but ultimately proof that he was unfit to rule. No one will believe that, Riker said. Won't they? You kept a prisoner alive for sentiment. You abandoned your post during an attack to protect her. You've been acting erratic for days. Half the council already thinks you've lost your mind. This just confirms it. Mira's face was expressionless, but something flickered in her eyes. Doubt, regret. Too little, too late. Thane drew his sword. Kill them both. Make it look like combat. Defensive wounds. A struggle. The mercenaries moved forward, crossbows raised, blades drawn. Riker and Kaya locked eyes one final time. I'm sorry, Riker said quietly. I'm sorry I couldn't save you. You did save me, Kaya said. You showed me I could be more than survival. That's enough. The mercenaries raised their weapons, and that's when the dungeon door exploded inward. Not opened, exploded. The iron door flew off its hinges, slammed into two mercenaries, crushed them against the stone wall. Through the smoke and debris, Cade Arrow walked in, not alone. Behind him, 50 palace guards. Full armor, full weapons. And behind them, members of the council. The ones who'd survived. The ones who'd stayed loyal. Cade's blade was drawn. His face was carved from rage. Step away from the king, he said quietly, or I'll paint these walls with your intestines. Thane turned. His face went pale. How did you think you're the only one who can plan ahead? You think Riker doesn't have contingencies? Cade walked closer. His blade caught the torchlight. The second the gas grenade came through the window, every alarm in the palace activated. Every guard was put on alert, and I've spent the last 2 hours hunting down every single one of your mercenaries hiding in our walls. You couldn't have... We did. 43 mercenaries arrested. 6 killed resisting. The rest scattered when they realized they were outnumbered 20-1. Cade stopped 3 feet from the cell bars. You failed, Thane. Your coup is over. Your mercenaries are gone. Your leverage is destroyed. And you're surrounded by guards who are very, very angry that you tried to kill their king. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Thane's hand flashed to Mira's belt, grabbed her knife, pressed it against her throat. Let me leave, or she dies, he said. Cade didn't even blink. Do it. Mira's eyes went wide. What? Thane's hand wavered. I said do it. Kill her. She's a traitor who sold out her king and orchestrated the deaths of hundreds. She deserves to die. Cade's voice was ice. But you? You're worth capturing alive, so either kill her and lose your only hostage or drop the knife and surrender. Your choice. Thane's hand shook. He looked at Mira, at the woman who'd helped him plan this, who'd provided intelligence, who'd betrayed everything for an ideal that was now crumbling around them. He dropped the knife. Surrendered. Guards swarmed into the cell, grabbed Thane, grabbed Mira, hauled them both out in chains. Cade moved to Riker and Kaya, cut their bindings with quick, efficient movements. Riker stood slowly. His legs barely held him. He was staring at Cade like he couldn't quite believe what had just happened. You saved us, he said. It's my job. Cade's expression softened just slightly. And you're my brother. I wasn't going to let you die in a dungeon. Riker pulled Cade into a crushing embrace. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. We still have to deal with the aftermath, the council, the territories, the citizens who just watched their capital burn. I know. Riker released him, turned to Kaya. She was standing now too, rubbing her wrists where the ropes had cut deep. Her eyes were bright, shell-shocked. You were really going to trade your kingdom for me, she said, without hesitation. That's insane. Probably. Riker stepped closer. His hand found her face again, same gentle touch as before. But I meant what I said. I'm done being alone, even if it costs me everything. You don't have to choose. Not anymore. Don't I? The council will never accept this. They'll never trust you after finding out you were part of the conspiracy. I'll make them accept it. Cade's voice was firm. We have Thane, we have Mira, we have evidence. We can prove Kaya was manipulated, not complicit, and anyone who argues otherwise can deal with me. Riker looked at his general, his brother, the man who'd just stormed a dungeon to save them both. You do that? You saved my life a dozen times. I figure I owe you at least one political battle. Cade sheathed his blade. But first, we need to get you both out of this dungeon. The citizens are gathering in the square. They want to know what's happening. They want to see their king. Riker nodded. He took Kaya's hand, held it tight. Together, they walked out of the dungeon, upstairs that seemed to go on forever, through corridors still bearing scars of battle, toward throne room doors that stood open. Beyond them, the sound of hundreds of voices, waiting, demanding answers. Riker stopped at the threshold, looked at Kaya one more time. Last chance to run, he said quietly. Walk through those doors with me and you're part of this. Part of Virex. Part of whatever comes next. It won't be easy. It won't be safe. But, Kaya squeezed his hand, I stopped running 3 days ago. I'm not starting again now. Riker smiled, and actually smiled. Then together, hand in hand, the Alpha King and the woman who wouldn't kneel walked into the throne room to face their kingdom. And whatever came next. The throne room was packed, not with council members or generals or territory alphas, with citizens, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They'd pushed through the palace gates in the hours after the attack, demanding answers, demanding to see their king, to know if he was alive or dead, to understand why their city was burning. The guards had let them in, because what else could they do? Lock the gates and pretend the Alpha King wasn't accountable to the people he ruled? That's what the old king would have done. Riker was trying to be different. The crowd went silent when he appeared in the doorway. Every eye locked on him, taking in the bandages, the blood soaked through in places. The way he moved, careful, pained, but still standing, still breathing, still their king. And beside him, holding his hand like she had every right to be there, was Kaya, the prisoner who wouldn't kneel. The woman the entire kingdom had heard about by now. The symbol of everything that had gone wrong, or everything that might go right, depending on who you asked. Riker walked forward, slowly. His wounded leg protested every step, but he didn't let it show on his face. Kaya matched his pace, her hands steady in his. They stopped at the base of the destroyed throne, the obsidian seat that had cracked during the battle. The skull embedded in the stone stared out at the crowd with empty eyes, a reminder of what happened to kings who showed weakness. Riker looked at it for a long moment. Then he turned to face his people. I know you want answers, he said, his voice carried across the vast room. Not shouting, just clear, authoritative. I know you're afraid, angry, confused. Your city was attacked. Your neighbors died. Your king was nearly killed in his own palace by people he trusted. You deserve to understand what happened and why. The crowd shifted, murmured, but stayed quiet enough to listen. 3 days ago, I brought a prisoner before this court, a woman from the outer reaches who'd killed a territorial alpha in self-defense. She stood where you're standing now, and I ordered her to kneel. She refused, in front of the entire council, in front of everyone who'd spent years watching people bow before they even spoke to me. Riker's jaw clenched. And I let her live. More murmuring, louder now. That decision was used against me, by people within my own council, by generals I trusted, by advisors who'd served this kingdom for decades. They used her refusal as proof that I was weak, that my authority was crumbling, that Virex needed new leadership. He paused. They weren't entirely wrong. The crowd went silent again. Kaya's hand tightened on his. She didn't speak, just stood there. Let him say what needed to be said. I've ruled through fear for 10 years, Riker continued, through dominance, through the threat of violence against anyone who questioned me. I told myself it was necessary. That strength required ruthlessness, that mercy was weakness, and compassion was a luxury kingdoms couldn't afford. His voice dropped. I was wrong. Someone in the crowd gasped. Alpha Kings didn't admit mistakes, didn't show vulnerability, didn't stand in front of their subjects and confess to being wrong. Fear works, Riker said. It keeps people in line. prevents rebellion, maintains order. But it also creates exactly what happened 3 days ago. It creates resentment, conspiracy. People so desperate to escape the fear that they are willing to burn everything down just to be free of it. He looked at Kaya, met her eyes. And then she walked into my life, refused to fear me, looked at me like I was just a man instead of a weapon wrapped in a crown. And for the first time in a decade, I remembered what it felt like to be human instead of just surviving. Kaya's throat was tight. She hadn't expected this, hadn't expected him to lay himself bare in front of an entire kingdom. Riker turned back to the crowd. The conspiracy that attacked us wasn't about her. She was just the excuse, the symbol they used to justify their actions. But the real reason they struck was because I'd become exactly what I swore I'd never be. A tyrant. Someone people obeyed out of terror instead of respect. "So what now?" someone shouted from the crowd. Male voice, angry. "You admit you're a tyrant, and then what? Step down? Let the traitors win?" "No," Riker said firmly. "I don't step down. Because stepping down means abandoning you to chaos, means letting the people who orchestrated this attack, who killed hundreds of innocent citizens to prove a point, claim victory. I won't do that." "Then what will you do?" Another voice. Female this time, scared. Riker looked at the broken throne behind him, at the skull staring out with dead eyes, at the symbol of everything his rule had been for 10 years. He reached up, removed his crown. The room inhaled collectively. "I'm going to change," he said quietly. "I'm going to stop ruling through fear and start ruling through something harder. Trust, accountability, the understanding that a king exists to serve his people, not the other way around." He held the crown in both hands, stared at it like he was seeing it for the first time. "This crown has been a cage," he said, "something I put on every morning and wore like armor, something that separated me from everyone around me, from connection, from honesty, from the possibility of being wrong." He looked up, met the eyes of his people. "I'm keeping the crown, but I'm changing what it means, starting now." He turned to Kaya. "You told me once that power isn't in making someone kneel, it's in standing beside someone who never will. You were right, and I'm done pretending otherwise." Kaya's eyes were burning. "Riker, I'm not asking you to kneel. I'm not asking you to submit. I'm asking you to stand beside me, as an equal, as someone who has every right to question me when I'm wrong and challenge me when I'm being an idiot, as someone who makes me want to be better than I am." The crowd was completely silent now, watching, waiting. "You're asking me to stay," Kaya said quietly. "In Virex, in the palace, with you. I'm asking you to choose, the same way I chose you over my kingdom when Thane had you in that cell. The same way you chose to stay when you could have run. I'm asking if you want this. Want me. Want a life that's going to be complicated and dangerous and probably insane." Kaya looked at him. At this man who'd been a king before he'd been a person, who'd built walls so high he'd forgotten what it felt like to let someone in, who was standing in front of his entire kingdom, making himself vulnerable because he'd finally found something worth the risk. "Yes," she said, "I want this." Riker smiled, the real smile, the one that made him look younger and less like a weapon. Then he did something no one expected. He knelt, not before Kaya, before his people. The crowd gasped. Some stepped back. Some leaned forward. An alpha king on his knees was unthinkable. "I've spent 10 years making you kneel before me," Riker said, his voice carried despite being on the floor. "I've demanded submission, obedience, fear. I've executed people for questioning my authority. I've ruled like a tyrant and called it strength." He paused. "I'm sorry. For the fear. For the isolation. For making you feel like you couldn't speak truth to power without risking your lives. I'm sorry." The silence was absolute. Then someone in the crowd, an older woman with gray hair and a scar across her face, stepped forward. "Get up," she said. Riker looked at her. "I said get up, you idiot. Kings don't kneel, even reformed ones." Riker stood slowly. The woman walked closer, stopped 3 feet away, studied his face with eyes that had seen too much. "My son died in the Eastern Quarter," she said quietly, "during the attack. He was a blacksmith, made weapons for your guard. Good man, hard worker, loyal to Virex. Riker's expression cracked. I'm sorry for your loss. You should be. He died because someone you trusted sold us out. Because your council was so corrupt you didn't even notice. Because you were too isolated to see the rot spreading. The woman's voice was sharp. But he also died defending this kingdom, defending you. Because for all your faults, you kept us safe for 10 years. You held the borders. You stopped the territorial wars. You gave us stability even if it came with fear. She looked at Kaya, then back at Riker. So here's what I'm going to tell you. You want to change? Prove it. You want to rule differently? Show us. But don't you dare kneel again, because we don't need a king who grovels. We need a king who learns, who listens, who's strong enough to admit when he's wrong and smart enough to fix it. Riker nodded slowly. I'll do better. You better, because if you don't, we'll find someone who will. The woman turned, walked back into the crowd, and one by one, other voices started speaking. My daughter was killed by the wolves. My husband lost his shop in the fires. My brother was a guard who died defending the West Wing. Each voice added to the chorus. Each loss laid at Riker's feet. Not accusing, not demanding vengeance, just speaking truth, making sure he understood the cost of what had happened. Riker stood there and took it. Every word, every name, every grief. He didn't defend himself, didn't make excuses, just listened. When the last voice fell silent, he spoke. I can't bring them back. Can't undo what happened. Can't make the pain go away. But I can promise you this. No more ruling through fear. No more isolation. No more pretending I'm above accountability. His eyes swept across the crowd. Starting tomorrow, this throne room opens to anyone who wants to speak. No appointments. No protocol. You want to question my decisions? You come here and question them. You want to challenge a law? You challenge it. You want to tell me I'm being an idiot? You tell me. And if we're wrong, someone called out, then we debate. We argue. We figure out the truth together, but I don't execute you for disagreeing. I don't punish you for speaking, because that's what tyrants do. And I'm done being a tyrant. Cade stepped forward from where he'd been standing at the edge of the room. The king speaks truth. I'll enforce it personally. Anyone who tries to silence dissent answers to me. Anyone who retaliates against citizens for speaking their minds answers to me. This changes. Now. More silence. Then someone in the back started clapping. Slow, uncertain. Others joined in. Not everyone. Not enthusiastic. But enough. Enough to show that maybe, just maybe, change was possible. The crowd began to disperse. Slowly. Talking among themselves. Processing what they'd just witnessed. An Alpha King admitting fault. Promising reform, standing beside a woman who'd refused to kneel and somehow survived. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a start. When the throne room was finally empty except for Riker, Kaya, and Cade, the three of them stood in silence for a long moment. That was either the bravest thing you've ever done, Cade said finally, or the stupidest. Probably both, Riker admitted. He looked exhausted. Like the adrenaline that had kept him standing was finally fading. You need a healer, Kaya said. Your wounds are bleeding through again. Later. First we deal with Thane and Mira. They're secured in the dungeons, Cade said. Triple guard, no visitors. Vex is in the cell next to them, all three waiting for trial. Public trial, Riker said. In 3 days. I want everyone to see what happens to traitors. Not executions in dark rooms, public accountability. Let the people decide if my judgment is just. You're really doing this, Cade said quietly. Changing everything. I'm trying. Whether it works is another question. It'll work, Kaya's voice was firm. Because you're not doing it alone anymore. Riker looked at her. Something shifted in his expression. Relief, gratitude, maybe even hope. Come on, Cade said. Let's get you both to the healers before you collapse. We can rebuild the kingdom after you've stopped bleeding everywhere. They walked through the palace together, down corridors being scrubbed clean, past guards posted at every intersection, past servants already working to repair the damage. The healing wing was chaos. Wounded guards, injured citizens, healers moving between beds with practiced efficiency. They found Riker a bed in a private room. The head healer, an ancient woman with hands that never stopped moving, took one look at his wounds and cursed. "You tore every stitch I put in," she said. "What were you doing? Fighting dragons?" "Traitors." "Close enough." She muttered something about stubborn alphas and started cleaning the wounds. Her hands were gentle despite her harsh words. Kaya stood by the window, watching the city below. The fires were mostly out now. Smoke still rose from the eastern quarter, but it was thin. Dying. "You should rest too," Riker said from the bed. "I'm fine." "You were knocked unconscious by gas, tied up in a dungeon, threatened with torture. You're not fine." Kaya turned, met his eyes. "Neither are you, but we're both still standing. That has to count for something." The healer finished her work, wrapped fresh bandages, gave Riker a draft that smelled terrible and probably tasted worse. "Sleep," she ordered. "Both of you. No arguments, no heroics, just sleep." She left. The room went quiet. Riker shifted on the bed, made room, looked at Kaya. "Come here," he said quietly. Kaya hesitated, then crossed the room, sat on the edge of the bed. Riker's hand found hers, laced their fingers together. "I meant what I said," he told her. "In the throne room, about wanting you beside me, about this being your choice." "I know." "And you're sure? Because once you commit to this, to me, to Virex, there's no going back. The territories will challenge you. The council will question you. Half the kingdom will think you're a threat, and the other half will think you're a weakness I can't afford." "And what do you think I am?" Riker pulled her closer, until her forehead rested against his, until they were breathing the same air. "I think you're the first person in 10 years who made me want to be better than I am. The first person who saw me, really saw me, and didn't run. The first person who made me believe that maybe power and connection aren't mutually exclusive." His thumb traced circles on the back of her hand. "I think you're everything I didn't know I needed." Kaya's eyes were burning again. "You're not what I expected either." "What did you expect?" "A tyrant, a monster, someone who'd kill me for defiance and not think twice." "And instead?" "I found someone just as alone as I was, just as tired, just as desperate for something real." She smiled, small, fragile. "I found you." Riker kissed her, gentle, careful, like she was something precious that might break. When they pulled apart, his eyes were gold again, but not from anger, from something else entirely. "Stay," he whispered. "Please, choose this, choose me. Choose us." "I already did," Kaya said. "Back in that cell when I refused to leave you. Back in the throne room when I held your hand in front of your kingdom. I chose you, Riker. I choose you." He pulled her down onto the bed, wrapped his arms around her despite the healer's protests about rest and recovery, held her like she was the only thing keeping him anchored. And maybe she was. They fell asleep like that, tangled together. Two people who'd spent most of their lives alone finally finding someone worth holding on to. Outside, the kingdom slowly began to heal. 3 days later, the trials began. The entire city gathered in the main square. Thousands of people packed shoulder to shoulder, watching, waiting. Riker sat in a chair placed at the center of a raised platform. Not a throne, just a chair. Beside him, Kaya. Beside her, Cade. The council members who'd remained loyal flanked them. Thane was brought out first, chains on his wrists and ankles, guards on either side. His face was bruised, his broken wrist splinted, but his eyes were still defiant. "Thane Arrow," Riker said formally, "you stand accused of treason, of conspiracy to overthrow the crown, of orchestrating an attack that resulted in the deaths of over 300 citizens of Virex. How do you answer?" "Guilty," Thane said. His voice was clear, unrepentant. "And I'd do it again. You're a tyrant. You deserve to fall." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "You murdered innocent people," Riker said quietly. "Children, elders, people who had nothing to do with your grievances against me. You burned the Eastern Quarter knowing families lived there. You killed guards who'd served loyally for years. You allied with territory packs who would have slaughtered everyone in this city if given the chance, all because you wanted revenge for your brother. My brother who you murdered, your brother who challenged me to single combat and lost. There's a difference. You crushed his skull. I won the fight. That's how succession works in Virex, has been for 200 years. Your brother knew the risks. He took them anyway because he thought he was stronger. Riker leaned forward. He was wrong. And instead of accepting that, you spent 5 years nursing a grudge and planning a coup that got hundreds of people killed. People who had nothing to do with your brother's death. Thane's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. Riker looked at the crowd. The old punishment for treason is death, public execution, quick, clean, a message to anyone else thinking about betraying the crown. The crowd murmured agreement. But I'm not the old king anymore, Riker continued, and I'm trying to be better than I was. So here's what I'm offering. Thane Arrow, you can choose death by execution, carried out immediately, or life in exile. You're stripped of your title, your lands, your name. You're escorted to the border and released into the outer reaches with nothing but the clothes on your back. You never return to Virex, never contact anyone in this kingdom. You disappear, and if you ever come back, the exile ends and the execution happens. Your choice. The crowd went silent. Thane stared at Riker like he'd grown a second head. You're offering me mercy. I'm offering you a choice, which is more than you offered the people you killed. Why? Because killing you doesn't bring them back, doesn't undo the damage, doesn't make me feel better. Riker's voice was tired. Because I'm done solving problems by ending lives. Because maybe, just maybe, if I show you mercy when you don't deserve it, someone else will remember that next time they're angry enough to burn everything down. Thane's mouth opened, closed. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, exile. So be it. Riker nodded to the guards. Escort him to the border. Release him beyond the walls. Spread the word to every territory and pack. Thane Arrow is exiled from Virex. Anyone who aids him shares his punishment. They took Thane away. Next came Vex. The trial was shorter. Vex had no defenses, no justifications, just greed and ambition and the arrogance to think he could orchestrate a coup and walk away with power. He chose execution. Riker granted it. Quick, clean, public. The crowd watched in silence as justice was carried out. Then Mira was brought forward. This was harder. 15 years of friendship, of loyalty, of fighting side by side. All of it burned to ash by betrayal. Riker looked at her, really looked at her. She looked back. Her face was pale, hollow, like she'd already accepted her fate. Mira, Riker said quietly, you were my friend, my scout, someone I trusted with my life. Why? Because I loved you, she said simply. The words landed like stones. Kaya's hand tightened on the armrest. Not romantically, Mira continued, not like that. But I loved who you were, who you could have been. And I watched you become something I didn't recognize, someone I couldn't follow anymore. So I did the only thing I could think of. I tried to save you by removing you, by killing me, by forcing you to face what you'd become, by creating circumstances that would either break you or rebuild you. Mira's eyes found Kaya. I didn't expect her to actually save you, didn't expect you to choose her over the kingdom, didn't expect you to change. So you regret it? I regret the deaths, the civilians, the guards. I regret that part went further than I wanted. But do I regret trying to stop you from becoming a monster? Mira shook her head. No, I don't. Riker sat back, exhaled slowly. The punishment for your crimes is death, he said. The same as Vex. The same as Thane if he'd chosen it. You orchestrated a conspiracy. You provided intelligence to enemies. You got hundreds of people killed. By every law in Virex, you should be executed. Mira nodded. I know. But you were right. The crowd gasped. I was becoming a monster. I was isolated, disconnected, ruling through fear because I'd forgotten any other way. And if you hadn't forced this confrontation, if you hadn't created circumstances that brought Kaya into my life, I'd probably still be sitting on that throne wondering why everything felt empty. Riker's voice was quiet. So here's my judgment. Exile. Same as Thane. You lose your title, your position, your place in Virex. But you keep your life because maybe in some twisted way, you did save me, just not the way you planned. Mira's eyes filled with tears. Riker, don't thank me. Don't apologize. Just leave. And don't come back. She nodded, stood, walked toward the guards, stopped, looked back one last time. For what it's worth, she said quietly, I'm glad you found her. I'm glad you found something real. I hope it's enough. Then she was gone. The trials ended. The crowd dispersed. Riker sat in the chair long after everyone else had left, Kaya beside him, Cade standing guard. You showed mercy to all of them, Cade said finally. Even Vex got a quick death instead of prolonged suffering. That's not the king I've known for 10 years. Maybe I'm not that king anymore, Riker said. Or maybe I'm trying not to be. Is it working? Ask me in a year. Kaya stood, held out her hand. Riker took it, let her pull him to his feet. Together they walked back to the palace. 6 months passed. Virex changed slowly, like a ship turning in deep water. The throne room opened to citizens every morning. People came, argued, debated, challenged laws and policies and decisions. Riker listened. Sometimes he agreed, sometimes he didn't, but he listened. The council was reformed. New members chosen by vote instead of appointment. Representatives from each quarter of the city, from the territories, from the people who'd been voiceless for too long. It was messy, inefficient, frustrating, but it was real. The territories tested the borders, pushed, probed for weakness. Riker pushed back, but he also negotiated, offered trade agreements instead of threats, built alliances instead of conquering. Some territories refused, chose conflict over cooperation. Riker dealt with them the old way, but he tried the new way first. And Kaya stood beside him through all of it, not as a prisoner, not as a symbol, as his partner. She learned statecraft, diplomacy, how to navigate council meetings and territorial negotiations. She was terrible at it at first, too direct, too honest, too unwilling to play political games. But she learned, and the people loved her for it, because she spoke truth when everyone else spoke carefully crafted half-truths, because she called Riker out when he slipped back into old patterns, because she'd survived the outer reaches and wasn't afraid of anyone. They stood on the palace balcony one evening, watching the sun set over Steelhaven. The city had been rebuilt. The eastern quarter was new construction now, better than before. Do you ever regret it? Riker asked quietly. Staying, choosing this life. Kaya leaned against him. Every day. He tensed. She smiled. I regret the politics, the endless meetings, the people who still look at me like I'm a threat, the territories who send assassins every few months just to test our defenses. But I don't regret you. Don't regret us. Don't regret finding out that I could be more than just survival. She turned to face him. You asked me once if I regretted not kneeling, standing up to you in that throne room, everything that followed. I remember. My answer hasn't changed. I don't regret it. Not then, not now, not ever. Riker pulled her close, kissed her like he'd done 100 times in the 6 months since the trials. But this time felt different. This time felt permanent. I love you, he said. Not asking, not questioning, just stating fact. I know, Kaya said. I love you too. Even when you're being an idiot. Especially when I'm being an idiot. Especially then. They stood there as the sun disappeared below the horizon, as the city lights began to flicker on, as Virex settled into another night of peace that they'd both fought to build. The kingdom wasn't perfect. Neither were they. But they were trying. And sometimes, trying was enough. Far below, in the throne room, the obsidian seat still sat cracked and broken. The skull still stared with empty eyes. Riker hadn't replaced it, hadn't repaired it, left it exactly as it was. A reminder of what he'd been, of what he'd almost become, of what he was choosing not to be. The crown still sat on his head, but it didn't feel like a cage anymore. It felt like a choice. Every single day he chose to wear it. Every single day he chose to be better. Every single day he chose her. And every single day she chose him back. Not because she had to, because she wanted to. And in a kingdom built on dominance and fear and absolute authority, that simple choice, made freely, without coercion, without chains, was the most powerful force of all. The girl who wouldn't kneel had taught the king how to stand, not above his people, beside them. And together, they rebuilt an empire, not through fear, through something far more dangerous, hope. The wind moved through the stone towers of Virex, carrying whispers of change across a kingdom that was learning to breathe again. And as night fell over Steelhaven, two figures stood silhouetted against the stars, no longer king and prisoner, no longer captor and captive, but partners forged in fire and bound by choice. The Alpha King still held power, but the woman who'd redefined it, she held his heart, and that made all the difference.